Chapter 399. As Thunderflame stared at the departing figures, the killing intent he'd been suppressing exploded once more. Sword light appeared beneath his feet as he chased after them. While he was still quite a distance away from Yunruoyan's group, Thunderflame took out his lightning-attracting sword and infused it with spiritual energy. Then, he directed the sword toward Zhuorifeng's back. Unlike humans, swords weren't as easy to detect as swords. As the sword drew closer and closer to Zhuorifeng, Thunderflame's murderous eyes lit up with a hint of joy. Suddenly, however, two voices rang out in Yunruoyan and Zhuorifeng's minds. "Mistress, there's a killer behind us, and it's headed for Zhuorifeng. Kid, someone's trying to kill you." The demon spirit's sinister voice rang out at the same time. At the same time, the sword had reached Zhuorifeng's back. "Zhuorifeng, be careful." Yunruoyan turned to Zhuorifeng. However, Zhuorifeng had already turned around. His eyes shone as he stared at the divine sword that pierced through the air. Then, with lightning speed, he blocked Thunderbolt Batian in front of him. With a "pu" sound, the divine sword pierced deeply into Pai Baishan's chest. Pai Baishan's eyes instantly widened as he stared in disbelief at the Thunderbolt divine sword that belonged to Lei Yen that had pierced his chest. "Tian, Thunderflame's heart-wrenching cry came from afar. "Zhuorifeng, Yunruoyan, Liemo, I'll tear the three of you to shreds." Zhuorifeng released his grip expressionlessly, and Thunderflame fell to the ground like a withered leaf. "Let's go!" Liemo exclaimed. With Thunderflame dead, Thunderflame would surely go berserk. If the three of them hesitated, they wouldn't be able to escape. "All warriors of the Thunderbolt clan, listen up. Kill those three. Kill them all." Thunderflame shouted to the hundreds of warriors behind him, then transformed into a streak of light and flew to catch Thunderflame's falling body. Thunderflame had truly gone mad. The pain of losing his son had caused him to forget even the Silver Dragon Elder's order not to kill Yunruoyan. Upon receiving their orders, the hundreds of warriors charged toward Yunruoyan's group of three. Hundreds of streaks of sword energy streaked across the sky above Thunderclap City like a meteor shower. The beggar in the corner of Thunderclap City opened his eyes in a daze and saw the meteor-like sword light that filled the sky. The commoners who had woken up at night also saw this rather grand pursuit. Because of Yunruoyan's trio, the entire Qinyuan continent was thrown into disarray. Yunruoyan's group of three flew so quickly that the warriors behind them couldn't catch up. However, in front of them, a warrior appeared to obstruct them. Yunruoyan released a fireball, Liemo congealed an icicle, and Zhuorifeng wielded a long black whip that Yunruoyan had never seen him use before. The three of them immediately began fighting against the warriors who were trying to stop the tribulation. Zhuorifeng's black whip could be long or short, flung, curled, chopped, or sliced. It was almost as if the whip had a life of its own. Every time Zhuorifeng struck, it would be a fatal blow, and its power was astonishing. When the three of them eliminated the people in front of them and prepared to continue fleeing, the hundreds of warriors behind them took the opportunity to catch up and surround the three of them. Yunruoyan's group of three stood back to back against the hundreds of warriors surrounding them. Most of these warriors were mid-9th rank swordsmen, but there were quite a few at the peak of 9th rank. Given the sheer number of them, even with Liemo, a 2nd-rank sword saint, the three of them couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. In the current situation, everyone can only break through one by one. Whoever can escape will escape. What she said was indeed the best way to break out of the encirclement, but the two men beside her completely ignored her words. Clearly, they wouldn't do as she said. "Listen to me," Yunruoyan said anxiously. "If I'm captured, you can still come back to save me. If you're all captured, there's no hope." "Brat." The evil voice sounded in Zhuorifeng's mind. "That girl is right. Let's escape first. When my cultivation recovers, I promise I'll let you come back and raze this place to the ground." Yen, why don't the two of us cover Zhuoyifeng's escape? All right. As soon as Yun Ruoyan said this, Zhuoyifeng shouted, "Shut up." Then, he flung his whip and charged into the crowd of warriors. Kill! Seeing this, Yun Ruoyan shouted and began a close combat with the samurai. Liamo stood not far from Yun Ruoyan, watching over her as he fought to ensure that she didn't get hurt. Zhuoyifeng, on the other hand, was like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins. With a whip in one hand and a long sword in the other, a green sword aura shrouded his feet. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a streak of light, dodging left and right in the midst of the crowd. Every time he went back and forth, he would take down more than a dozen warriors. The ink-black whip in his hand was particularly strange. When it was wielded, it seemed to carry with it a tornado of its own, sending people flying before they even touched them. Yun Ruoyan stood atop the Scarlet Eye sword. The sword's scorching heat had a suppressive effect on ice and would attune spiritual techniques, so any warrior who used either of those techniques wouldn't be able to touch her unless they were of a higher cultivation level than Yun Ruoyan. As for the warriors who used other types of spiritual techniques, very few of them had a higher cultivation than Yun Ruoyan. Only 2 or 3 fire-attuned warriors were working together to deal with Yun Ruoyan. Because Yun Ruoyan had been nourished by the sagely grade spirit crystal, she had the upper hand in terms of spiritual energy, so even though she was fighting 1 against 3, she wasn't at a disadvantage. Fireballs flew randomly from her hands in all directions, and when combined with her barbaric fighting style, Yun Ruoyan was quite a formidable figure in the crowd, striking fear into the hearts of the onlookers. As Liamo dealt with the warriors around him, he kept an eye on Zhuoyifeng from time to time, just in case he encountered any danger. But when he saw the performance of the two of them, he was truly shocked. Both of them had unknowingly reached the peak of 9th rank, and judging from their spiritual energy, they seemed to be on the verge of breaking through to the Sword Saint realm. Because of Yun Ruoyan's demonic dragon bloodline, the fact that she and Liamo had been practicing the dual cultivation technique together, and that Liamo had been protecting her the entire time, it was understandable that her cultivation had improved so quickly. But Zhuoyifeng's rapid improvement left Liamo a little puzzled. As the battle continued, the sky grew brighter and brighter. The citizens of Thunderbolt City had long been woken up by the massive battle in the sky. Those who were brave enough to venture out into the open spaces and look up. From time to time, a warrior would fall from the sky, landing on the roofs of the city or on the ground with a loud thud. Those who were more timid hid in their houses and peeked out from their windows. Whenever a warrior fell from the sky and landed in the courtyard, it would incite the screams of the women in the city. None of these commoners knew where this battle had come from, nor did they know who the 2 men and 1 woman who had besieged them were. However, from then on, they would forever remember this battle that had caused the entire Thunderclap city to tremble. As the hundreds of warriors surrounding Yun Ruoyan's group dwindled, Thunderflame grew both anxious and angry. He stowed Thunderflame's Thunderflame away before entering a secret chamber in his room and taking out the heaven-turning mirror. Then, he flew back into the air and shouted angrily at Yun Ruoyan's group. "Today, the 3 of you will die in my city, or my son won't be able to rest in peace." After saying that, Thunderflame pushed the sky-toppling mirror up into the sky and it fired out a white pillar of light. The 10-meter-long pillar of light enveloped half of the battlefield. "Not good, it's a pillar of light," Yun Ruoyan exclaimed. After the pillar of light enveloped Yun Ruoyan's trio, it began to shrink, excluding all the other warriors. In the end, only Yun Ruoyan, Zhuoyifeng, and Zhuoyifeng remained. Without another word, Liamo raised his spiritual energy to its peak, gathered it in his fist, and threw a punch at the pillar of light, causing it to tremble. But just as Liamo was about to punch a second time, the sky-turning mirror suddenly shot out white swords of light at the 3 of them. "Liamo, be careful." Yun Ruoyan pulled Liamo aside and dodged one wave of swords of light, but another wave of swords of light shot out. Yun Ruoyan, Liamo, and Zhuo Feng quickly covered their bodies with spiritual energy barriers, but the swords of light from the sky-turning mirror were no small matter. When they struck Yun Ruoyan and Zhuo Feng, they immediately opened up a hole in their spiritual barriers. Li Mo's barrier also began to ripple, and it looked like it wouldn't last much longer. Zhuo Feng, come over here. Li Mo covered Yun Ruoyan with his robe before turning to Zhuo Feng. Zhuo Feng, come over here. Zhuo Feng glanced at Li Mo coolly, but didn't accept his offer of protection. The barrier around his body had already been damaged by the swords of light, and he used his whip and sword to block the swords of light. However, because the swords of light were so concentrated and powerful, Zhuo Feng's arm was quickly cut open. Kid, use my shield. Suddenly, that sinister voice rang out in Zhuo Feng's mind. Zhuo Feng suddenly remembered that he had obtained a shield along with the black whip in the southern tower of Kongming Academy. Zhuo Feng hadn't used that shield ever since he had refined it, and he had forgotten about it for so long. Zhuo Feng's reminder reminded him of that ink-black shield, and with a flip of his hand, it appeared in his hand. The palm-sized shield quickly grew to about half his height, and Zhuo Feng raised it in front of him. He didn't know what material the shield was made of, but the swords of light were all blocked by it. I think you'd better come over to my side. Zhuo Feng turned to look at Li Mo, revealing an almost imperceptible smile that was rarely seen on his face. Chapter 400. That shield can actually block the sky-turning mirror's sword of light. Outside the pillar of light, Thunderflame's expression was one of disbelief. Let's see if you can block this. Thunderflame pulled out the Thunderbolt Divine Sword from Pai Baishan's chest, still stained with his blood, and pointed it towards the sky. In a split second, the morning glow disappeared, and dark clouds gathered. The sky was filled with the crackling of thunder from far to near. Thunderflame had infused 70% of his spiritual energy into the sword, summoning the lightning in the sky to strike down at the tip of Thunderflame's sword. A deafening crackling sound resounded through the sky. The lightning-attracting divine sword was instantly attached to lightning, and dazzling electric snakes crackled and flashed on it. Turn all three of them into dust. After saying that, Thunderflame pointed at the sky-defying mirror. The lightning bolts flew towards the sky-defying mirror. The sky-defying mirror reflected the lightning bolts back at the three cultivators inside the pillar of light. Another deafening crack rang out. The electric tongue was reflected by the sky-turning mirror, doubling its power. Then, it was applied to the shield in Zhuo Feng's hand. One could imagine how powerful it was. Ugh! Zhuo Feng groaned, clearly unable to hold the shield steadily. Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo both reached out to hold the shield, and the three of them bore the brunt of the lightning strike together. Yun Ruoyan felt a burning, bone-piercing pain travel from the shield to her arm, and then from her arm to her entire body. Ugh! Yun Ruoyan also let out a cry of pain. Of the three youths, only Li Mo's complexion was normal. Yun Ruoyan and Zhuo Feng's faces were pale, and beads of sweat were forming on their foreheads. Humph! Thunderflame looked at the three people in the pillar of light and snorted coldly. I only used 70% of my spiritual power to attract a medium lightning bolt. This time, I'll attract the strongest lightning bolt and turn you to ash. Thunderflame raised his sword once more, this time infusing a full 10% of his spiritual energy into it. This time, even the heavens and earth seemed to tremble. When that bolt of lightning struck the Thunderbolt Divine Sword, even Thunderflame found it a little hard to stand still. Li Mo, we've almost died together. I don't know if we'll be able to escape this time. Yun Ruoyan turned toward Li Mo. Her brows were slightly furrowed, and her face was pale. Her forehead was beaded with sweat, but her lips were curled up in a faint smile. It was a beauty so fragile that it made one's heart ache. Whether we live or die, as long as we can be together. Li Mo wanted to wipe away the sweat on Yun Ruoyan's forehead, but he couldn't. When Feng heard Yun Ruoyan's voice, he turned to look at her. Yun Ruoyan's pale face and heart-wrenching smile made his heart ache. Yun Ruoyan, I won't let you die, Feng murmured to himself. Brat, you'd better think about how not to die. The demonic voice said. The demonic spirit's tone was very serious. From this, it could be seen that the danger this time was definitely not going to be easy to pass. All of you, die. As Thunderflame shouted, the earth-shattering bolt of lightning finally struck the sky-turning mirror, and from there, it flew toward Yun Ruoyan's group of 3. With this attack, Thunderflame lost all his strength. The sword light beneath his feet swayed, and he almost lost his footing. Yun Ruoyan's group of 3 knew that as long as they survived this strike, Thunderflame wouldn't be able to summon another one, and the 3 of them would have a chance to escape. As a result, the 3 of them infused all of their spiritual energy into the black shield in order to withstand this fatal strike. With a loud cracking sound, a lightning bolt that was more than twice as powerful as the previous one struck the shield once more. That intense burning sensation immediately spread throughout the 3's bodies. The 3 of them felt the extreme pain of their meridians being burned and their spiritual seas being evaporated. Ha ha ha, this is what happens to those who oppose the Thunderflame family. Thunderflame's arrogant voice reverberated in their ears, but the 3 of them were powerless to retaliate. But at this time, the sky-turning mirror in the skies suddenly produced a strange phenomenon. A gentle white light shot out of the mirror without warning. The white light hit the shield, and the flashing electric tongues grew weaker and weaker until they gradually disappeared. Yun Ruoyan's group of 3 also felt this sudden change. They looked at each other, unsure of what was going on. Then, they all turned to look at the sky-turning mirror. A faint white light poured down from the mirror, bathing them in its gentle glow. Even the numbness from the electric shock had disappeared. This. Thunderflame stared at the scene in front of him in shock, unable to even form a complete sentence. Thunderflame, how dare you? An angry voice rang out in Thunderflame's mind, causing his entire body to tremble. This voice belonged to none other than the First Elder. Great Elder. Thunderflame's legs went limp as he stood on the sword light in midair. His entire body fell to the ground. The First Elder's voice rang out in Thunderflame's mind once more. I've warned you time and again not to harm Yun Ruoyan, but you dare ignore my words. What's the point of keeping you alive? First Elder. Thunderflame hurriedly begged for mercy. I was blinded by the pain of losing my son, but I won't dare do it again. Please spare my life, First Elder. Yun Ruoyan's group of 3 saw Thunderflame kneeling on the ground, muttering something inaudible. However, the 3 of them didn't have the time to pay attention to him. After 2 more strikes, the pillar of light trapping them began to tremble violently, and Limo's full-strength punch completely shattered it. While everyone else was still in a daze, the 3 of them flew past the encirclement and out of Thunderflame's city. Idiot, hurry up and chase after them, the First Elder yelled. If Yun Ruoyan escapes, I'll make sure you suffer. Thunderflame's body trembled, and he quickly organized his troops to continue the chase. Yun Ruoyan's group of 3 was exhausted after being electrocuted twice, as well as having fought a fierce battle. Even after they left the Thunderflame family's territory, Thunderflame and a large group of warriors continued to chase after them. As Yun Ruoyan flew, she turned to look at the horde of pursuers behind her and cursed, "What a bunch of stubborn dogs." "Yen, don't let your guard down," Liemo comforted. "Once we reach the Feng family's territory, they won't be able to chase after us." "I'm afraid we won't be able to last until we reach the Feng family," Feng replied. His face was extremely pale. He had suffered the most from the lightning strike, and although it wasn't obvious from the outside, he had clearly sustained some internal injuries. "Look!" Yun Ruoyan suddenly called out, her voice filled with excitement and joy. "It's the Count of the Wind." Sure enough, a black shadow was flying toward the 3 of them. Young Master Li, Shui Feng, Miss Yun. The Count of the Wind's voice came from afar. The Patriarch has specially sent me to welcome the three of you. Am I late? Count of the Wind. Yun Ruoyan called out. You're just in time. We're being chased by a pack of rabid dogs, and we can't shake them off no matter how hard we try. Leave it to me, the Count of the Wind replied. The Patriarch is waiting to welcome the three of you in Feng City. You can go ahead first. The Count of the Wind really did appear at the right time. This time, he had appeared just as Yun Ruoyan's group was exhausted, as if a ray of light had illuminated the land. Yun Ruoyan's increasingly clear, middle-aged face became more and more adorable in her eyes. From then on, Yun Ruoyan gave the Count of the Wind a nickname, Timely Rain, Count of the Wind. Yun Ruoyan's group was finally able to slow down and catch their breath. Behind them, they could hear the cries of the Thunderbolt warriors, as well as their shouts for the Patriarch to be protected and for them to retreat back to Thunderbolt City. Of the Thunderbolt warriors present, only Thunderbolt Flame was able to put up a fight against the Count of the Thunderbolt. However, he had summoned 2 bolts of lightning in a row, and he had no energy left to fight. The hundreds of Thunderbolt warriors were immediately routed by the Count of the Wind's attacks. Yun Ruoyan's group of 3 finally returned to Wine City after a near-death experience. Ever since they had gotten married, Yun Ruoyan had lost her usual sharpness in front of him. Instead, she had begun to act like a little girl, a side that no one else would ever be able to see. Liemo reached out and pulled Yun Ruoyan's soft body into his embrace. Yen since you can't bring yourself to say it, let me guess. Guess? Yun Ruoyan raised her head to look at Liemo's chiseled chin. Alright, guess. I don't believe you'll be able to guess even this much. You'll know whether or not I can guess it by listening to me, Liemo replied with a smile. You're worried about your feelings. Yun Ruoyan frowned. Continue. You're already my wife, and there's nothing wrong with our relationship. So you're not worried about your own feelings, but about someone else's, am I right? Yes. Yun Ruoyan shook her head. If Shui Feng said that he liked her, then it had something to do with her. All right. Liemo flipped over and pinned Yun Ruoyan beneath him. He looked down at her, his eyes filled with her image. You're worried about Shui Feng and Lin Qingxue. Lin Qingxue likes Shui Feng, but Shui Feng likes you. You want to help them sort out their feelings for each other, but you don't want to see either of them hurt, only to find that you're in no position to do so. Yun Ruoyan's beautiful eyes slowly widened. You actually guessed it. I'll chase for you. Such a beautiful and cute girl, it would be a pity if I couldn't get her. I told you to shut up. Shui Feng was thoroughly enraged. I won't allow you to read my thoughts, and I won't allow you to have any thoughts about Yun Ruoyan. Otherwise, I won't forgive you even if I have to die with you. Alright, I won't say any more, I won't say any more. The next day, before Yun Ruoyan could speak to Shui Feng announced that he would be returning to the city guards with Qin Feng. That day, Qin Feng had been struck by lightning, but more than half of the lightning's power had been absorbed by his sword. Although he had sustained some injuries, they weren't very serious, and he returned to the city guards after a short period of recuperation. After learning of Liemo and Shui Feng's return, Qin Feng had returned from the ranks of the warriors. When Qin Feng saw Shui Feng, he asked him if he would like to return, and Shui Feng decided that it was a good idea. Yun Ruoyan naturally had no objections, and she and Liemo began their journey to Lai City. When they arrived at Lai City, the two of them took Feng Yicheng's letter and went to the city lord's mansion. They spent 100 spirit stones to have a servant deliver the letter. The two of them waited outside for a long time before the servant came out and gave them a slip of paper. The name of a restaurant was written on the slip of paper, and Lai Sin instructed the two of them to wait for him there. It seems that Lai Fenglan isn't just unfriendly toward the Feng family, Li Mo commented. The Lai family and the Thunder family are old friends, and at such a sensitive time, it's only natural for him to be unfriendly toward the Feng family, Yun Ruoyan replied. Let's go and wait for the young lord of Lai City. The two of them arrived at the fortune inn written on the slip of paper. It was the largest restaurant and inn in the entire Thunderbolt City. The two of them directly booked a room there, changed into a set of casual clothes, and sat down at the most conspicuous table in the hall, preparing to order some wine and food while they waited. The wine was good, and the food was good. Just like Liemo, Yun Ruoyan took small sips of the wine and occasionally picked up some of the lighter dishes to eat. I used to be hungry all the time, and anything I ate tasted good. But now, I don't feel hungry, and everything I eat seems tasteless. As Yun Ruoyan sipped her wine, she lamented the fact that she had lost one of her greatest passions in life. Not long after she finished speaking, a waiter's attentive voice came from the door. Oh, young lord, it's been a while since I've seen you. What brings you here today? Yun Ruoyan's back was facing the door, and she turned toward it as soon as she heard the voice. Lai Sen's gaze swept across the hall, and he immediately saw Yun Ruoyan turn around to look at him. That's simple. Lai Sen immediately replied. Then, he asked the waiter for a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone, and drew out the situation in the city lord's mansion clearly. That night, Yun Ruoyan and Liemo climbed over the walls and entered the manor. According to Lai Sen's map, they landed in the northern courtyard of the manor, where Lai Fenglan was resting. Their only goal was to find Lai Fenglan and have him listen to the terms of their alliance. After the two of them landed on the ground, they headed towards Lai Fenglan's room. After evading a few patrolling warriors, the two of them arrived outside Lai Fenglan's room. However, they discovered that there was no aura in the room, and there was no human aura either. Lai Sen had said that Lai Fenglan would only be in two places at night, either his own bedroom for work or rest, or the training room to treat Lai Yun's injuries. Yun Ruoyan and Liemo immediately headed for the training room. The courtyard where the training room was located was very quiet, almost to the point where not a single sound could be heard. The two of them knew that it was because Lai Yun needed to recuperate and could not make any loud noises. Otherwise, it would trigger the madness that she had suppressed. The two of them headed straight for the training room. However, before the two of them could step into the training room, a tall, white-haired, sharp-eyed, and resolute middle-aged man walked out of the training room. Before the old man could speak, Yun Ruoyan and Liemo concluded that this was the city lord of Lai City, Lai Fenglan. May I know what business you two have with me? Lai Fenglan asked in a low, thick voice. Chapter 403. As soon as Lai Fenglan's voice rang out, a dozen or so skilled warriors leaped over the walls of the small courtyard and surrounded Yun Ruoyan and Liemo. Another dozen or so took to the skies and sealed off any escape routes. Not only did this happen quickly, but it also didn't cause any loud noises. By the time all the warriors were in position, the entire courtyard was silent once more, as if nothing had happened. City Lord Lai, Yun Ruoyan began, we bear no ill will. You intruded into my manor in the middle of the night, and yet you say you bear no ill will. Lai Fenglan's resolute, square-shaped face was filled with anger. Without giving Yun Ruoyan a chance to explain, he continued, City Lord Li has already informed me of your presence, as well as a portrait of the two of you. You're the traitors of the Li family depicted in the portrait, Yun Ruoyan and Liemo. Capture these two traitors for me. Following Lai Fenglan's order, more than 20 warriors in the sky and on the ground attacked the two simultaneously. The 10 or so warriors in the sky used wood attune techniques against the two of them. Dozens of vines formed a net above the two of them, completely cutting off their escape routes. Meanwhile, the warriors on the ground quickly moved forward to engage the two of them in melee combat. These people had obviously gone through strict training, because no matter how intense their battle was, they didn't make a single sound, and they just carried on quietly. Because Yunruoyan and Liemo didn't want to become enemies with the Lai family, they had been on the defensive all this time. Against these 10 or so warriors, they were only able to injure or push them back. None of their attacks were life-threatening. But this wasn't the way to go. Liemo, as Yunruoyan used her scarlet eye sword to repel the warriors attacking her, she turned to Liemo, who had his back against hers. It seems that Lai Sun wasn't exaggerating when he said that Lai Yun can't hear any noise. In that case, I have an idea. What idea? With a kick, Liemo sent one of the warriors who had been slashing at him flying. The warrior somersaulted several times in the air before landing firmly on the wall. He then rubbed his chest, kicked off with both legs, and charged at Liemo again. "Make some noise," Yunruoyan replied. "As loud as you can make it." Liemo immediately understood what she meant. "All right." Then, he lifted his long leg and kicked the samurai who was rushing towards him in the same spot he had just kicked. Amidst the silence, there was a cracking sound, but Liemo's kick had broken several of the warrior's ribs. The samurai's body flew out like a ball and hit the courtyard wall. With a loud bang, half of the courtyard wall collapsed from the violent impact. Lai Fenglan furrowed his thick eyebrows, lowered his voice, and said to the surroundings, "Be careful, don't make any noise." However, Yunruoyan wasn't going to let him have his way. Liemo frowned and stepped forward, shielding Yunruoyan behind him. "I've only recently mastered my 1,000-ton palm, so I'll use you as a practice target." Lai Fenglan shouted, then once again reached out for Liemo. Even before the palm arrived, a gust of wind had already struck. Even though Yunruoyan was standing behind Liemo, her long hair and clothes still fluttered in the wind. Liemo had also raised his cultivation to its peak, and his fists were once more covered in ice crystals as he prepared to receive the blow. Just as the 1,000-ton palm was about to strike, a woman's crazed scream came from behind Lai Fenglan. "Ah!" This cry was like a wail of pain, causing goosebumps to appear on the back of those who heard it. As soon as this scream left Lai Fenglan's mouth, he couldn't help but turn back to look at the room behind him. Seeing that Lai Fenglan was distracted, Liemo immediately pulled Yunruoyan to the side, barely dodging the attack. With a thump, the 1,000-ton palm struck the floorboards, shattering them into pieces. "Ah!" Following this loud noise, a woman's scream came from within the house. This scream was even more mournful than the previous one. Miss, don't do this, don't do this." At this moment, the voices of many women resounded from within the room, and then 2 women dressed as maidservants hurriedly ran out of the room and said to Lai Fenglan, Patriarch, the young lady has gone crazy again." Lai Fenglan couldn't care less about Yunruoyan and Liemo anymore as he rushed into the room. "Liemo, stop him." Yunruoyan instructed Liemo, then rushed into the room as well. Liemo, on the other hand, appeared in front of Lai Fenglan. "Get out of my way." Lai Fenglan shouted angrily at Liemo when he saw Yunruoyan enter the room. "City Lord Lai, my wife's here to save your daughter," Liemo replied. "If you barge in, I'm afraid you'll harm Miss Lai. I've used most of my strength to save Yun, and you want that silly girl to save her. Don't spout nonsense." As Lai Fenglan spoke, he attacked Liemo ferociously, while Liemo kept Lai Fenglan at bay, not letting him step into the room. As soon as Yunruoyan entered the room, she saw that Lai Yun's hair was disheveled, and her entire body was bound by chains. Her youthful and beautiful face had been corroded by the aura of death, and her eyes had turned red. Her entire body was as shriveled as a ghost's. "Kill me, kill me!" Lai Yun screamed in pain as she struggled for her life. The black aura on her face was filling up her red eyes, and wisps of it were leaking out. "Miss Lai, I'll save you right now." As Yunruoyan spoke, she took out the bottle that contained the ghostly aura. However, before she could open it, Lai Yun had pulled out the chains around her wrists and flung them at Yunruoyan's arm. Yunruoyan cried out in pain, and the bottle flew out of her hand, landing on the floor far behind Lai Yun. Miss, you can't go out. Chapter 404. Don't worry about her. Capture the mistress. Lai Fenglan didn't even look at Yunruoyan as he commanded. None of the warriors wielded any weapons, instead pouncing on Lai Yun with their bare fists. Yunruoyan's eyes widened as she watched the warriors pounce on Lai Yun. Of all the warriors she had seen, the Lai family wasn't the strongest, but they were definitely the most well-trained. All of the warriors pounced on Lai Yun at the same time, suppressing him beneath their bodies. They had thought that this would be enough to trap him, but under the influence of the corpse poison, Lai Yun's strength was unparalleled, and he actually managed to send the warriors flying. However, in this short period of time, Yunruoyan had already opened the bottle in her hand. A wisp of black ghostly energy seeped out of the bottle and condensed into a humanoid shape. Yunruoyan quickly made a series of complicated hand seals at the ghostly figure as she muttered an incantation. This was a ghost-controlling technique that she had learned from the Count of the Wind before setting off. After the ghostly figure had been reforged by a ghostly master, it was no longer under the control of a soul ring. Only the deceased ghostly master knew how to use a bottle to control a ghostly figure, but this set of hand seals and incantation could allow her to control the ghostly figure for a short period of time. A glowing red array appeared in front of Yunruoyan the moment she made the hand seals. When the array's light hit the ghostly figure's body, it trembled, as if in extreme fear. Ghostly figure, absorb the corpse poison from Lai Yun's body. Yunruoyan commanded the ghostly figure through the array's power, and the ghostly figure flew toward Lai Yun. Ghostly figure, don't you dare harm my daughter. Lai Fenglan shouted anxiously when he saw a ghostly figure flying toward Lai Yun. City Lord Lai, in this world, only this ghost can save your daughter. Yunruoyan shouted at Lai Fenglan. Lai Fenglan hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward to stop the ghostly figure. Stubborn fool. Yunruoyan shouted, then turned to Liemo, stop him. Liemo once again began fighting with Lai Fenglan. This time, Lai Fenglan was forced to retreat again and again. He wasn't Liemo's match at all, and he was quickly restrained. As Lai Fenglan watched the ghostly figure slowly approach her daughter, her hands tightly clenched into fists. When Lai Yun saw the ghost, she was terrified. She screamed and tried to run, but Yunruoyan rushed forward and stepped on the chains that were still attached to Lai Yun's legs. Caught off guard, Lai Yun fell to the ground. Yunruoyan then pulled on the chains that bound his wrists, and he was able to stand up with her help. Guemei, what are you waiting for? Startled, the ghost no longer dared to hesitate. It floated in front of Lai Yun, opened its large mouth, and sucked at Lai Yun's face from a distance. The letter stated that not only did the Thunderbolt clan attack the Feng clan small town, but they also ignored the agreement between the 7 countries and openly sent people into the extreme darkness to plunder. They even sent people to seize the spirit crystal stone vein. By now, Feng Yicheng and Zhuo Yifeng had already brought their warriors to the extreme darkness. Lai City wasn't far from the extreme darkness, and Feng Yangyang had sent the 2 of them to reinforce the Feng clan. Liemo waved his sleeves and tucked Murphy into them. Then, the 2 of them left Lai City that very night and headed toward the extreme darkness on their swords. The next day, when the Lai father and daughter pair found out that the 2 of them had left overnight, they weren't surprised. This was because they, too, had received news that the Thunderbolt family had conspired with 2 other families to seize control of the spirit crystal mine in the darkest reaches of the lands. The spirit crystal stone vein was originally an abandoned mine, but 2 years ago, a year after the Feng clan took over the mine, they discovered a new vein of spirit crystal stones in the extreme darkness. The Thunderbolt clan had been eyeing the mine for a long time, and the moment they fell out with the Foam clan, their first target would be the Spirit Crystal Stone vein. They had only attacked the Foam clan's small town as a diversionary tactic. The Thunderbolt clan has a high chance of winning this battle. Yun, aren't you being a little too rash? Lai Fenglan asked Lai Yun in his study. Lai Yun replied disapprovingly, the Thunderbolt clan only has a high chance of winning, not a guaranteed victory. If they have our help, they'll definitely win, Lai Fenglan replied. Father, do you remember what you told me that day? Lai Yun suddenly asked. What? You said that Lai Yang had time to watch the tournament, but not to visit me, Lai Yun replied. At the time, I said that I didn't mind, but I've kept it in mind. After thinking about it, if the Foam clan doesn't care about the Lai family, then we don't have to bother with them, do we? Moreover, although the Thunder clan has the upper hand in this battle, the Thunder clan's tyranny is clear for all to see. Such people can only be a temporary hegemon, but not a permanent one. Our Lai clan has no need to step into these muddy waters. As long as we don't help either side, watching the tigers fight from the other side is the best choice. Yun-er's analysis is correct. Regardless of who wins, as long as we remain neutral, we'll be the ultimate victor, Lai Batian replied. From then on, whenever the Thunderbolt clan made any requests of the Lai family would use Lai Yun's illness as an excuse. Yun Ruoyan and Liemo knew the way to the darkest lands, but they didn't know the exact location of the Spirit Crystal Mine. After flying in the air for a day and 2 nights, when they were about to approach the land of extreme darkness, the two of them looked down and saw a carriage on the ground. The two of them descended from the sky and were about to ask the carriage for directions to the Spirit Crystal Stone Mine. When they landed on the ground, the two of them realized that the warriors in this group were wearing the warrior uniforms of the Wu clan, the Qin clan, and the Thunder clan. It was obvious that these 3 clans had formed a team of warriors. Furthermore, this group was heading towards the Thunder clan's territory from the extreme darkness. Who are you? Get out of the way, a brawny man dressed in the Wu family's uniform shouted at Yun Ruoyan and Liemo, what's on your carriages? If you want us to get out of the way, let us take a look. As Yun Ruoyan asked, she glanced at the 7 or 8 carriages, clearly interested in what they were. Each carriage was covered with a thick cloth made of an unknown material. Not only was it impossible to see what was hidden within, but it also seemed to block out their auras. What's this got to do with you? The Wu warrior glared at Yun Ruoyan. The two of you aren't here to rob us, are you? Do you know which family we belong to? How dare you block our way? If you know what's good for you, get out of the way. Get out of the way. I'd like to see how you're going to do that. Yun Ruoyan crossed her arms in front of her chest as she stared at the warrior. Her posture was clearly provocative. Most warriors in a group like this were 9th-rank swordsmen, and they weren't Yun Ruoyan's match. Liemo saw that Yun Ruoyan wanted to practice, so he stood to the side. Yen, make it quick. No problem, Yun Ruoyan replied. Oh, there's actually someone who's not afraid of death, the man laughed. Let's go. Beat that girl until she calls me brother. That's right. How dare she try to rob carriages at such a young age? If we don't teach her a lesson, she'll be out of control. The other warriors in the procession all laughed and egged on, but one of them, a tall, thin youth, remained silent. His gaze shifted from Yun Ruoyan to Liemo, and he didn't look away for a long time. Liemo also noticed his gaze, and he glanced back at him coldly. When their gazes met, both of them had concealed their auras, but it was clear from their eyes that the other was an expert. The burly man from the Wu family walked out of the carriage with an arrogant smile. He pointed a finger at Yun Ruoyan. Little lass, since you're courting death, don't blame me for being merciless. Yun Ruoyan smiled and dashed toward the warrior. Yun Ruoyan's incredible speed caused the Wu warrior to pause for a moment. All he saw was a flash of red light, and a scorching hot sword aura pressed against his neck. Who are you people? The martial master asked in a trembling voice. He had been subdued by Yun Ruoyan in the span of a breath, and by the time he reacted, Yun Ruoyan's scarlet ice sword was pressed against his neck. The heat from the sword's edge had scorched the hairs on his neck into fine ash. Who we are is none of your business, Yun Ruoyan replied. I just want to know what's in your carriages. As Yun Ruoyan spoke, she brought the scarlet ice sword closer to the warrior's neck, and the scorching hot sword aura quickly scorched a part of his neck. Ouch! The warrior cried out in pain. No, I'll tell you. What's in our carriages? Before he could finish his sentence, a black figure suddenly leapt out of the procession and fired dozens of icicles at Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan hurriedly used her scarlet eye to block the icicles that were aimed at her. She heard the Wu warrior's pained cry, and when she turned around, she saw 3 icicles sticking out of the warrior's chest. He was already dead. Yen, be careful. Liamo rushed to Yun Ruoyan's side and formed a wall of ice, blocking all of the ice spikes that the slender warrior had unleashed. After the first wave of icicles had been released, the tall, skinny warrior retrieved a sledgehammer and leapt down from the air, smashing it against Liamo's shield. Liamo felt a strong force travel from the ice shield to his hand. Although it wasn't enough to hurt him, it was enough to make him slightly apprehensive. Liamo hadn't expected such a small procession of carriages and an inconspicuous, tall, and skinny warrior to be a peak swordsman. Yen, back off. Liamo turned to Yun Ruoyan, then infused spiritual energy into the ice shield in his hand. The cracks and damages caused by the tall, skinny warrior's hammer quickly healed. Then, Liamo infused a large amount of spiritual energy into the ice shield, then transferred it to the hammer, and began a contest of spiritual energy with the tall, skinny warrior. The warrior was clearly no match for Liamo. Gradually, his face turned from red to white, then from white to gray, until there wasn't a single trace of human color left on his face. Chapter 406. Liamo continued to increase the intensity of his spiritual energy, and the lanky man finally couldn't hold on any longer and spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing that he was too severely injured to resist, Liamo retracted his spiritual energy, and the lanky man collapsed to the ground. Even the Thunder family's experts aren't a match for them. That's right, we're definitely no match for them. Let's run for our lives. When the other warriors saw the Thunder family warrior collapse to the ground, they all began to flee. Yun Ruoyan conjured a dozen or so fireballs at the fastest of the fleeing warriors, who quickly caught on fire and began to roll on the ground. Some of the warriors even had their legs pierced by Liamo's icicles and collapsed to the ground. Those who don't flee will be spared, but those who do will be killed without mercy. Yun Ruoyan shouted. As soon as she finished speaking, the warriors stopped fleeing and stood where they were, waiting for Yun Ruoyan and Liamo to deal with them. The two of them walked up to the lanky warrior, but before they could ask him anything, the warrior spat out another mouthful of blood, closed his eyes, and stretched out his leg. He had actually severed his meridians and died. This warrior was in stark contrast to the other Wu and Qin family warriors, who would immediately flee in the face of a powerful foe, or be frightened by a few fireballs and icicles. The two of them walked up to the carriage, and Liamo lifted the black cloth covering it. A dense wave of spiritual energy washed over them. It's spirit crystal ore, Yun Ruoyan explained. Liamo nodded, then turned to one of the Qin family warriors and asked, were these ores plundered from the spirit crystal mine in the darkest reaches? Yes, the warrior stammered. From the warrior, the two of them learned that the spirit crystal mine had already been occupied by the Thunder family, and that these warriors were only in charge of transporting the ores. Some of them were only 8th rank swordsmen, some not even 9th rank. The lanky warrior was an expert sent by the Thunder family to protect the caravan. There were more than a dozen such caravans, and each one was guarded by an expert. Every convoy actually has such an expert protecting them. Yunruoyan couldn't help but turn back to look at the tall, thin warrior lying on the ground. He was a sword saint, and if what the Qin warrior had said was true, then there were at least a dozen sword saints among the warriors in charge of guarding the ores and spirit crystals. Liemo frowned as well. Based on their understanding of the Thunder family, they didn't have this many experts. The only possibility was that they'd borrowed them from the Qin and Wu families, but that didn't seem very likely. Those two families couldn't possibly be stronger than the Thunder family, so it was impossible for them to be so generous. According to the time stated in the letter, Feng Yicheng and Zhuo Yifeng should have already arrived with their men, Liemo replied. We'll find out the details when we get there. The two of them let the remaining warriors escort the carriages back to the original route. After half a day, they finally arrived at the Crystal Spirit Stone Mine in the extreme dark land. When the two of them were still 5 or 6 miles away from the Crystal Spirit Stone Mine, they sensed the aura of fighting coming from the Crystal Spirit Stone Mine. "They're fighting again," one of the warriors by the side exclaimed. "Did this battle start a long time ago?" Yunruoyan asked the warrior. Since Yunruoyan and Liemo weren't particularly aggressive toward these warriors, they weren't afraid of them, and they would even chat with them from time to time. Yunruoyan learned that they weren't originally warriors, but rather that they'd been temporarily transferred here. They were only responsible for transporting goods and rarely participated in battles. "This battle started 2 days ago," the slightly older warrior replied. The Thunder Clan's warriors occupied the Spirit Crystal Vein and began to mine it like crazy. They told us to transport these high-quality veins back to Thunder City. 2 days ago, the Feng Clan's warriors arrived and began to attack the city. In that case, how did you manage to transport the ores out? Yunruoyan asked. "There's a secret passageway." The Thunder family had been in charge of this mine for many years, and even the Feng family didn't know about some of the passageways leading to the outside world. Yunruoyan and Liemo ordered the warriors from the Qin and Wu families to transport the 7 or 8 carts of ores to a secluded location. Yunruoyan then drugged them with a bewitching powder before letting them go. The two of them then rushed toward the area where the battle was the most intense. Wherever the battle was intense, the spiritual energy would also be the most violent. If it were a battle between just 1 or 2 people, it might not be easy to detect, but if it were a battle involving more than a dozen people, the violent spiritual energy would be easily detected from afar. The two of them flew toward the area where the spiritual energy was the most violent, and they soon arrived at the location where the battle was taking place. It was a valley surrounded on 3 sides by tall, white mountains. The entrance to the valley was blocked by a tall wall, and the two of them discovered that the entire top of the valley was sealed off by a restriction. In other words, it was impossible to fly into the valley from the sky. At the moment, close to 100 warriors were engaged in a fierce battle outside the valley's walls. Zhuo Yifeng. Yunruoyan spotted Zhuo Yifeng amidst the crowd. His long, black whip danced like a dragon, sending all the spiritual energy attacks and physical attacks flying. Yunruoyan couldn't help but be shocked by the power of his whip. How had Zhuo Yifeng's cultivation and offensive prowess reached such a level without her even realizing it? Liemo glanced coolly at Zhuo Yifeng before finding Feng Yicheng amidst the crowd. Feng Yicheng was currently being attacked by 3 highly skilled warriors. One of them was a wood-attuned cultivator, constantly releasing vines in an attempt to trap Feng Yicheng. Feng Yicheng was barely able to dodge his attacks, while the other 2 were ice-attuned cultivators, constantly releasing icicles at Feng Yicheng. Feng Yicheng's arms and legs were already bleeding, and he was in a dire situation. Liemo and Yunruoyan exchanged a glance before flying toward the battlefield. In midair, Liemo released a fireball technique at the 3 warriors attacking Feng Yicheng. The fireball incinerated the vines that were trying to trap Feng Yicheng, and the flames spread to the warrior's body, causing him to have no time to attack. All he could do was try to extinguish the flames on his body. As for the two warriors who had been releasing icicles, they were immediately set ablaze by the fireball, and they began rolling on the ground in pain. Without hesitation, Feng Yicheng stabbed his sword into the chest of the warrior who was trying to extinguish the flames on his body. "Are you all right?" Liu Mo asked as he looked at the wound on Feng Yicheng's body. "I'm fine, just some superficial wounds," Feng Yicheng replied. "You've come at the right time. We've been attacking for 2 days now, but we haven't succeeded. With your help, we'll definitely be able to conquer this mine today." As Feng Yicheng chopped down a Qin family warrior beside him, he pointed his sword at a long-haired Li family warrior. "That man's a very powerful cultivator. Yesterday, he killed more than a dozen of our warriors by himself. Shui Feng and I only managed to fight him to a standstill, but we still couldn't kill him." Liu Mo glanced at Yun Ruoyan. With her sword in hand, no one dared to get close to her, and Shui Feng had also noticed her approaching. Li Mo's gaze moved from Yun Ruoyan to the long-haired warrior, who was also a peak sword saint. With one hand, he crazily chopped down any Feng warriors who wanted to get close to the gate. Some of the Feng warriors had their arms chopped off and were wailing in pain on the ground. Some had their heads chopped off, and some were directly cut in half at the waist. The warrior's other hand continuously released fireballs and threw them at the Feng clan's warriors who were fighting in the distance. Once the fireballs touched the bodies of the Feng clan's warriors, they quickly spread to their entire bodies. From the power of his fireballs, Liu Mo could tell that he was on the verge of breaking through to second rank. Unless someone stronger than him could kill him, he would be a meat grinder on the battlefield. With a flip of his hand, Liu Mo retrieved the azure light sword. With a flash of green light beneath his feet, he flew toward the long-haired warrior. The azure light sword carried a fierce offensive and violent spiritual energy as it was raised high by Liu Mo, slashing down on the warrior's head. Li Mo's attack was fast and ferocious, and the long-haired warrior reacted quickly enough to block Li Mo's fatal blow with his saber. But how could the warrior's sword be a match for Li Mo's azure light sword? His cultivation was also lower than Li Mo's, and with a loud clang, Li Mo's azure light sword sliced through the warrior's head. Then, Li Mo's azure light sword sliced through the warrior's head as easily as cutting through tofu. With the death of this warrior, the combat strength of the Thunderclap clan dropped by half, and the Feng clan quickly gained the upper hand. When Liu Mo returned to Yun Ruoyan's side, he glanced at Shui Feng, who happened to turn his head and look straight at Liu Mo. Liu Mo felt that Shui Feng's gaze was cold, sinister, and a little strange. But by the time he wanted to take a closer look, Shui Feng had already chased after the fleeing warriors of the Li family. With a bang, the gate was kicked open, and the Feng warriors swarmed into the mine. "Liu Mo, let's go as well." Yun Ruoyan turned to look at Liu Mo, who was looking at the crowd from afar, deep in thought. "Liu Mo." Yun Ruoyan called out once more, bringing him back to his senses. "Let's go in as well." Yun Ruoyan grabbed Li Mo's hand and followed the warriors into the mine. After nearly 3 days of battle and the loss of nearly 100 warriors, the Feng family finally managed to reclaim the spirit crystal mine, but they found that the entire mine had been emptied. However, the two of them were only temporary members, and the guards didn't seem to have any ill intentions towards them. As a result, they didn't dare to pry into the guards' secrets. "No wonder I always felt that old Lin was holding back every time I sparred with him, but he refused to admit it," Qin Feng commented. Shui Feng also recalled the many times he had fought with the warriors of the city guard team. It seemed that it was always a competition of moves and not a competition of spiritual power. If it was a competition of pure spiritual power, he estimated that he had no chance of winning. This time, the Thunderbolt clan took advantage of the Feng clan and finally stopped for a while. However, the Feng clan had learned their lesson and began to actively prepare for the next phase of the attack. During this period of time, the artistic team was also summoned back. Feng Yanyang personally met them and praised them greatly. Before the real battle began, the artistic team helped the Feng clan win over nearly 100 minor clans. At this moment, they were still active in the cities of the Thunderclap, Wu, and Qin clans in order to win over these minor clans. Although these small clans didn't seem to be of much use at the moment, as time passed, they would become more and more useful. Feng Yanyang firmly believed in this. However, being active in a local faction was a very dangerous thing to do. Feng Yanyang gave them a choice. If they were willing to stay, the Feng clan would provide them with lifelong protection. However, Auntie Hong, Hoodlum, and Little Qing all rejected Feng Yanyang's good intentions. Yun Ruoyan tried to persuade them to stay, but Auntie Hong told her that if they didn't completely destroy the Thunderbolt clan, not only would their conscience not be at peace, but the Feng clan would also be in danger of being swallowed up. If the Feng clan were to lose this battle, how could they possibly protect them? Thus, the artistic team set off once more, starting a new journey that belonged to them. On the day that Auntie Hong and the others left, Feng Yicheng also left. He rode a horse and accompanied Auntie Hong's carriage for a very long time. When he returned, his face was flushed and he was in high spirits. Yun Ruoyan was curious and asked him if something good had happened, but Feng Yicheng smiled and didn't answer. Later, Yun Ruoyan learned from Liemo that Feng Yicheng had proposed to Auntie Hong, and that she had agreed to his request. As long as he didn't mind her status, she would return to marry him on the day the Thunderbolt clan was destroyed. Yun Ruoyan was drinking with Liemo in their courtyard. Yun Ruoyan smiled and raised the flask to Liemo. For Auntie Hong's happiness, we must destroy the Thunderbolt clan. Yun Ruoyan tilted her head back and drank all the wine in the flask. Her body began to sway. Liemo couldn't help but laugh at her adorable appearance. He stood up and hugged Yun Ruoyan. He looked at her blushing face and said, "It's late, my little consort. We should go rest. A night of lingering love, a night of sweet dreams." This period of time was particularly difficult for Zhuo Yifeng. As the demonic spirit in his body grew stronger, he found that he was losing control of it, especially during battles. Zhuo Yifeng didn't want to kill his opponent, but the demonic spirit suddenly took control of him and killed his opponent who already had no strength to even truss a chicken. If this had only happened on the battlefield with the Thunderbolt clan, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But there was one time when Zhuo Yifeng was competing with one of the city guards who was on good terms with him. As the battle grew more and more intense, Zhuo Yifeng gradually lost control of himself and killed his opponent. At that time, it was fortunate that his opponent suddenly erupted with his true cultivation, or else the consequences would have been unimaginable. Zhuo Yifeng became more and more aware of the dangers of the demon spirit. He began to think of ways to expel it from his body, but no matter how hard he tried, he didn't succeed. "How can you leave my body?" Zhuo Yifeng wanted to use his own spiritual energy to expel the demon spirit from his body. He nearly suffered internal injuries, but he didn't seem to be able to force it out. "Since the day you accepted me and fused with you, I will never leave your body." The demon spirit's sinister voice sounded in Zhuo Yifeng's mind. "Then what if I die?" Zhuo Yifeng asked coldly. "If I die, will I be able to escape from you?" When the demon spirit heard Zhuo Yifeng's words, its tone softened. It hurriedly said, "I'm just joking with you and your friend. Haven't you always been curious about the true cultivation of your city guard friends? I'm just testing them for you. If you don't show them a bit of strength, they definitely won't reveal their true strength." Chapter 408. If they hadn't displayed their true strength, would you have used my hands to kill them? Zhuo Yifeng asked coldly. Of course not. If you'd killed any one of those warriors, you'd be in big trouble. If you're in trouble, I won't be in trouble either. I won't make things difficult for myself. It's good that you know, Zhuo Yifeng said. Don't force me to kill myself. I know, I'm not stupid. The sinister voice laughed. Don't threaten me with killing yourself. You're just too tired of living. You don't dare to do the things you want to do, the people you want to kill, and you don't even dare to confess to the woman you like. If you're so tired of living, why don't you let me live for you? I dare you to say that again. Zhuoyifeng lowered his voice, his tone full of anger. I won't say it, the demon repeated. Although Zhuoyifeng had almost injured someone, the consequences weren't too severe. Fortunately, the warriors weren't petty people, and Zhuoyifeng was quickly forgiven. As for the sudden burst of power that was close to the Sword Saint realm, although the crowd was a little surprised, they didn't suspect anything. Because Zhuoyifeng's current cultivation was at the peak of 9th rank, the other warriors could tell from his outburst of power that he was about to break through, and they all came forward to congratulate him. The captain of the warriors, Old Lin, especially sought out Zhuoyifeng for a chat and imparted him with a few things to take note of before breaking through to the Sword Saint realm. This made Zhuoyifeng very grateful. When he'd first joined the city guards, he'd only wanted to find a place where he could cultivate, but after a year of interaction with them, he'd unknowingly developed feelings for them. At some point, Zhuoyifeng even had a desire to bring Zhuolin here 3 years later. He truly felt the kind of stable life he'd longed for. The peaceful days didn't last long before the Thunderbolt family began to act up again. The Thunderbolt, Wu, and Chen families formed a team of warriors that constantly harassed the Feng and Hua families in the surrounding counties. This time, the Feng clan and the Hua clan were prepared. The Thunderbolt clan didn't succeed in their sneak attack. Within a month, the two clans had engaged in more than 10 battles. In the battle, both sides had sent out secret warrior groups, so there would be great perfection-level warriors fighting each other in almost every battle. The battle situation was unprecedentedly intense. This situation persisted for more than a month. Both sides suffered heavy casualties, but the Feng family was still a little weaker. Even with experts like Liemo and Count of the Feng, the Thunderclap still managed to take over 5 small cities. As the Spring Festival approached, both sides declared a temporary truce. The truce lasted for half a month, which meant that after the Spring Festival, both sides would resume fighting. Despite Wind City's defeat in the war, the people of Wind City still decorated their homes with lanterns and streamers as the Spring Festival approached. One day, Liemo brought Yun Ruoyan out to buy some Spring Festival couplets and lanterns. Yun Ruoyan held a large red lantern in each hand, and her steps were light and cheerful, sweeping away the gloom of the war. Just by looking at Yun Ruoyan's happy expression, Liemo was delighted as well. The two of them arrived at the gates of the Hua clan's residence. Just as they were about to enter the residence, a ragged beggar suddenly walked out from the side of the gate and quickly walked toward Yun Ruoyan. Normally, if someone were to suddenly approach Yun Ruoyan in such a manner, they wouldn't even be able to touch her. However, this beggar didn't have the slightest cultivation, and he immediately knelt in front of Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan was taken aback. Liemo had already prepared to attack, but when he saw the beggar's actions, he stopped. This was a rather special period. Both sides had spies in the other cities, and the Thunderbolt clan had a long history with Yun Ruoyan. It wasn't impossible for them to send someone to assassinate her. As a result, although Liemo stopped attacking, he still stood in front of Yun Ruoyan. He took out a few spirit crystals and handed them to the beggar. However, the beggar didn't reach out to take them. Instead, he raised his head excitedly and wiped the dust off his face. "Miss Yun, Masterly, don't you recognize me?" the beggar asked excitedly. Yun Ruoyan turned to look at the beggar. He had a mustache, and he looked rather familiar. Yun Ruoyan's eyes lit up as she pointed at the beggar. "Are you Steward Hu?" Liemo frowned. Although the beggar was a little tan and skinnier, he was clearly the same arrogant, mustached steward from years ago. "Oh, Miss Yun, you've finally remembered me." The mustache man stood up from the ground in excitement. Kneel! Liam barked, scaring the mustache man into kneeling once more. You're the steward of the Thunderbolt clan. What are you doing here? Ah! The bearded manager sighed and said, It's a long story. Miss Yun, Masterly, I had eyes but failed to recognize empty tie. That was my mistake. But I asked the two of you to save my family's second young master. He's about to die. The bearded manager said as tears flowed down his face. What's wrong with the Thunderbolt clan? Yun Ruoyan walked up to the man from behind Liam. Why don't you stand up first? The man with a small mustache stood up and wiped his tears and snot with his dirty sleeves as he said, The two of you, quickly come with me. I'm afraid that I won't be able to see my second young master if I'm a little late. The mustache man led Yun Ruoyan and Liam through 2 streets until they arrived at a relatively remote area where a rundown temple stood. As soon as Yun Ruoyan entered the temple, she saw a similarly disheveled man curled up in a pile of rags in the corner of the temple. Yun Ruoyan hadn't even seen the man's face, but when she saw his head of fiery red hair, she couldn't help but feel her heart clench. She quickly walked toward him. Thunderson. Yun Ruoyan walked up to the man and called out to him in a small voice. The man lying in the pile of rags was indeed Thunderbolt, but the Thunderbolt in front of her now looked like a completely different person from the arrogant Thunderbolt of the past. Not only was his face haggard and lifeless, but both of his arms had been chopped off, and he looked as if he would pass away at any moment. When Thunderclap heard Yun Ruoyan's voice, he turned to look at her, his lifeless eyes finally regaining a trace of life. Yun Ruoyan. Thunderclap's breathing became ragged as he called out Yun Ruoyan's name, as if he would die at any moment. How did you end up like this? Yun Ruoyan's voice was filled with both disbelief and pain. Although Thunderbolt was a member of the Thunderbolt family and had tried to harm her and Liam in the past, he had never intended to harm Yun Ruoyan. In fact, he had even helped her more than once. As a result, even if Yun Ruoyan didn't like him, she was still grateful to him. It's so good to see you again. I thought I'd never see you again. After panting for a long while, he slowly closed his eyes, but there was a faint smile on his lips. Second young master, second young master. The mustache man pounced on Thunderbolt's body and began sobbing. Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt. Yun Ruoyan called out. Liam knelt down by Yun Ruoyan's side and checked Thunderbolt's pulse. He's not dead yet. There's still time to save him. The mustache man immediately crawled up from Thunderbolt's body and knelt in front of Liam and Yun Ruoyan, kowtowing profusely. Please, save the second young master of the city. If not for the fact that the city lord discovered that he had helped Miss Yun, he wouldn't have injured him so severely after chopping off both of his arms. I've offended the two of you in the past, but the second young master of the city has indeed helped the two of you in the past. Please, save him. The mustache man buried his head in his hands and continued to cry, but Yun Ruoyan stopped him. All right, hurry up and catch up. The mustache man raised his head to find that there was no one in front of him, and Thunderbolt was nowhere to be seen. He hurriedly looked outside and saw that Yun Ruoyan and Liam had already walked far away. Thunderbolt was being carried on Liam's shoulder, and the mustache man hurriedly got up and chased after the two of them. Yun Ruoyan and Liam brought Thunderclap back to the Yun residence. Lin Qingchen was panicking, and Yun Ruoyan could only console her, promising that she'd find a way to retrieve the ring for her. In the manner of the Thunderbolt City Lord, Thunderbolt Batian was playing with a scarlet whip in the courtyard. Although his movements weren't large, they were rather smooth. Gradually, Thunderbolt Batian's movements became faster and faster, and the whip became a whirlwind in the air. Suddenly, an intense pain radiated from both his arms. Thunderbolt Batian groaned in pain and stopped what he was doing. A layer of sweat had formed on his forehead, either from the pain or from the intense exercise he'd just had. Damn it, there's still a rejection reaction. Thunderbolt Batian put away his whip and spread his hands out in front of him, staring at the pair of hands that seemed both familiar and strange. These hands had once belonged to his younger brother, but now they were on his body. Thunderbolt Batian didn't feel the slightest bit ashamed. Thunderbolt, you can't blame me. If you hadn't colluded with Liemo to plot against me, I wouldn't have lost both my arms and almost lost my life. Thunderbolt Batian muttered to himself. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to an ancient-looking ring on his left hand. Thunderbolt Batian had long since discovered that this was a spatial ring. He tried many methods, but just like Thunderbolt and the Mustache Man, he was unable to open it. Most spatial rings didn't have any restrictions, and anyone could easily open them. As a result, this spatial ring had successfully attracted Thunderbolt Batian's attention. Thunderbolt walked into the courtyard and called out when he saw Thunderbolt Batian standing there in a daze. Father! Thunderbolt Batian snapped out of his daze and turned to Thunderbolt Batian. Thunderbolt Batian could tell from his sweaty face that he'd been cultivating again. I know you're anxious, but your arms won't be healed in a short period of time. Even the Silver Dragon Elder said that you'll need at least half a year to fully use them. Father! Thunderbolt Batian looked at Thunderbolt Batian. Do you have any more of that holy water? As long as I have it, I'll be able to revive even if I die again. The Elder only gave me one bottle, and I used it all to save you, Thunderbolt Batian replied. According to the Silver Dragon Elder, that holy water is extremely precious. Based on what we've done recently, the fact that the Elder gave you a bottle to save your life is already a great favor. Father, didn't the Elder say that if we could capture both Yun Ruoyan and Liemo, he'd fulfill one of your conditions? At that time, you can make a wish for a few more bottles of holy water, Thunderbolt Batian replied. Thunderbolt Batian nodded. Both Yun Ruoyan and Liemo are currently under the Feng family's protection. If we want to capture them, we'll have to start with the Feng family. When the Feng family collapses, Yun Ruoyan and Liemo will have nowhere to run. Father, Thunderbolt Batian replied. Thunderbolt Batian continued, our family has always had the upper hand in recent battles. Why would you agree to a truce at a time like this? Wouldn't this be giving the Feng family a chance to catch their breath? In my opinion, we can simply ignore the truce and take down Thunderbolt City in one fell swoop, capturing both Liemo and Yun Ruoyan. Thunderbolt Batian's agitated tone turned even more helpless. Of course I want to do that, but it's not just the Feng family that needs to recuperate. Our Thunderbolt family, the Wu family, and the Qin family also need to rest and recuperate. Although we've dealt a heavy blow to the Feng family, we've also lost quite a number of elite warriors. Our secret warrior corps has been reduced by half, but fortunately, we have enough high-grade spirit stones to quickly raise a large number of elite warriors to replace them. Is the Lai family still unwilling to join us? Thunderbolt Batian asked. Father, why don't you increase the amount you promised them? Thunderbolt Batian replied, I've already increased the amount I promised them, and I've even written a letter to Lai Fenglan. His words were very sincere, but he kept using Lai Yun's illness as an excuse. Thunderbolt Batian paused for a moment before continuing, perhaps he wasn't trying to avoid us on purpose, but that Lai Yun's illness really is getting worse. Why do you say that, Father? In his most recent letter, he requested for a grand wedding between Lai Yun and Thunderbolt. He even said that as long as they were married, the two families would become one family, and he would naturally help them. It seems that Lai Yun doesn't have long to live, and he wants to fulfill his final wish. Thunderbolt Batian continued, if this letter had come 2 months earlier, it wouldn't have been difficult for Thunderbolt and Lai Yun to get married. But now that Thunderbolt's whereabouts are unknown, how could they possibly get married? Moreover, he's already a cripple. Even if Lai Yun were to die, he probably wouldn't be willing to marry a cripple. Chapter 4:10. Father, do you have any news of my brother's whereabouts? Thunderflame asked. Thunderflame shook his head, his tone still angry. No, I've severely injured him, and there's no place for him in Thunderbolt City. It's hard to say whether he's still alive or not. Why don't we find him? After all, he's your son, and your blood flows through his veins, Thunderflame probed. I don't have a son like that, Thunderflame replied firmly. Thunderflame said resolutely, I originally thought that it would be fine to raise him properly. I didn't care about the small troubles he caused in the past, but I didn't expect that he would almost harm you this time. The Thunderflame family can't allow such a traitor to live. Pai Badian didn't say anything else, but the corners of his mouth curled into a faint smile. Pai Yen and he were half-brothers of the same father but different mothers. Pai Badian was the son of Pai Yan's main wife, while Pai Yang was merely a child he had with a servant girl after drinking too much. Although Pai Yan's blood flowed through their veins, in his heart, these two sons were as different as the clouds and the mud. One was his pride, while the other was his humiliation. He had always been strict with Thunderflame, his future successor, and had strict requirements for him. As for Thunderflame, he didn't care about him at all, but in the eyes of outsiders, it was a form of pampering. Even Thunderflame himself was more doted on than Thunderflame, but what he didn't know was that true love came with strict requirements. But in the past 2 years, Thunderflame had made some progress in his cultivation, and he had wanted to train him to be Thunderflame's right-hand man, but this incident had caused the hatred that Thunderflame had suppressed for many years to suddenly burst forth. At that time, he had held the idea of killing Thunderflame, but he had not thought that Thunderflame would not only stubbornly survive, but also survive to Wind City and be rescued. Although the new year hadn't arrived yet, Count of the Wind was already making preparations for the upcoming war. He'd set up defenses in various small cities before returning to Wind City. As soon as Yun Ruoyan received news of Count of the Wind's return, she'd immediately gone to the city guards and invited him to treat Thunderflame's injuries. After Count of the Wind's treatment and recuperation, Thunderflame finally began to recover day by day. However, although his body had recovered a lot, his mood had always been very gloomy. The sunny and somewhat arrogant youth of the past had died forever. Yun Ruoyan sympathized with Thunderson's plight. He'd gone from being the young lord of a city to nothing, and he'd even been crippled by his own father. Yun Ruoyan could empathize with his pain. As a result, Yun Ruoyan would often come to Thunderclap's aid when she had nothing better to do. One day, the Count of the Wind came to see Thunderclap again. Coincidentally, Yun Ruoyan was also present. You're recovering well. The Count of Wind said, from now on, this old man doesn't need to come and see you, second young master. Feng Bo, you don't have to call me second young master from now on. Just call me Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt smiled bitterly, I have been chased out of the Thunderbolt clan forever. From now on, the Thunderbolt clan has nothing to do with me. The Count of Wind sighed, nodded, and was about to leave. Seeing that he seemed to have something on his mind, Yun Ruoyan asked, Thumbwa, is something the matter? Is it regarding the Thunderbolt clan? Hearing Yun Ruoyan's question, Count Feng stopped in his tracks and walked back to the two of them. I've just received news that the Thunder family has proposed marriage to the Lai family. If the marriage is successful, I'm afraid that the two families will join forces once more, and it'll be even more difficult for the Feng family to win. The Thunderbolt clan has proposed marriage to the Lai clan. Thunderclap looked shocked. Yun Ruoyan remembered that Lai Fenglan had told her that Lai Yun and Thunderclap had been engaged to each other since they were young. With Thunderclap's current state, he couldn't possibly go to the Lai clan to propose marriage. What was the Thunderbolt clan up to this time? Could it be? Count of Wind, tell me in detail. Which member of the Thunderbolt clan proposed marriage to the Feng clan? Yun Ruoyan asked. Who else could it be? The Count of Wind replied impatiently. Of course it's that Thunderbolt Badian, the first miss of the Lai clan, who came back from the dead. As expected, Yun Ruoyan's ominous premonition had turned into reality. The Thunderbolt clan has already announced that the second young master of the city, Thunderbolt Yang, has passed away due to a serious illness. However, in order to fulfill their engagement with the Lai clan, Thunderbolt Batian will take his brother's place and marry Lai Yun, the Count of Wind added. What did the Thunderbolt clan say? Yun Ruoyan asked. Not yet, the Count of Wind replied. Lai Yun probably won't agree, the Thunderbolt clan suddenly said. Lai Yun never liked my brother, Thunderbolt Batian. She said that he was too smart and powerful, and she was afraid of him. But the marriage between the two clans probably isn't up to her, is it? The Count of Wind was still worried. Everyone present knew what a marriage between the Thunderbolt clan and the Lai clan would mean. Although Lai Fenglan had promised not to help either side, once the Thunderbolt clan and the Thunderbolt clan became a family, and it was only natural for a family member to help a family member, this promise would become empty talk. No, Uncle Lai values Lai Yun very much, and he's been grooming her as his successor, the Count of Wind confirmed. This has also nurtured Lai Yun's unyielding personality, so if she doesn't wish to marry, no one can force her. Yun Ruoyan had some experience with this. Back at the banquet the Lai clan had hosted for her and Liemo, she could tell that Lai Yun's words carried a lot of weight. When Lai Yun had proposed not to help either side, Lai Fenglan had clearly been stunned for a moment, which meant that this decision had been made by Lai Yun, not him. If Lai Fenglan could allow Lai Yun to make such an important decision, then surely he would respect Lai Yun's own opinion on the matter of marriage as well. I've actually heard a little about Lai Yun's personality. The Count of Wind sat down on a nearby chair and looked at the Count of Wind. At the same time, I've also heard that Miss Lai's heart belongs to you. If you were to personally meet her, young Master Li, perhaps you'd be able to completely dissuade her from marrying you. Count of Wind, are you intending to have Thunderbolt convince Lai Yun? Yun Ruoyan asked. That's exactly what I'm thinking, the Count of Wind replied. But, Thunderbolt. Yun Ruoyan glanced at the bedridden Thunderbolt. Although his body had mostly recovered, the damage to his vitality wasn't something that could be healed in a short period of time. More importantly, he was now a cripple. I have a soul-gathering pill here that can quickly replenish your energy. Count Feng took out a dark green bottle from his chest pocket and said, if the Pai and Lai clans really marry each other, then the Feng clan will have no chance of winning this battle. When the day comes that the Feng clan is destroyed, I'm afraid all of us here won't be able to have a good life. Yun Ruoyan and Count of Fengs both turned to look at Thunderclap. Alright, I'll go, Thunderbolt finally said. You've saved my life, so no matter what, I should do what I can for the Feng family. However, I'm afraid that Lai Yun will only detest me in my current state. That's not necessarily the case. Yun Ruoyan could tell that Miss Pai didn't seem like the kind of person who would despise others for no reason. It's fine even if we don't get anything out of this trip. Let's just treat it as if we're meeting up with a friend. Alright. Thunderbolt glanced at Yun Ruoyan gratefully. Within the city lord's manor, Lai Fenglan and Lai Sin were both trying their best to persuade Lai Yun to agree to the marriage with Thunderbolt. Yun save me just this once, Lai Fenglan urged. Lai Fenglan said, putting aside the fact that Pai Batian and Pai Yang are worlds apart, now that Pai Yang is no longer in this world, his engagement with you should be replaced by his older brother. What are you still hesitating about? Lai Yun slumped on the soft mattress, her face a little pale. Thunderbolt's death had dealt quite a blow to her. Thunderbolt is Thunderbolt, and Thunderbolt is Thunderbolt. They're two different people, so how can they be compared? Chapter 412. Lai Yun. Thunderbolt looked at Lai Yun with gratitude in his heart. At the same time, he felt a little guilty. He had more or less lied to Lai Yun. Miss Lai, Yun Ruoyan began. Thunderclap had originally planned on hiding for the rest of his life, but after learning that Pai Batian had proposed to you, he was afraid that you'd been deceived by the Pai father and son, so he came to see you. Thunderclap, don't worry. Lai Yun looked at Thunderclap resolutely. Not only will I not marry Pai Batian, I'll even seek justice for you. Lai Yun, you'd better think this over, Lai Fenglan added. Father, this concerns my marriage. You have to listen to me, Lai Yun replied resolutely. I've already made up my mind to reject the Pai family's proposal. Seeing Lai Fenglan's awkward expression, as well as his father's strange gaze, Thunderclap understood. Uncle Lai, I know that I'm a cripple now, and I'm not a good match for Lai Yun at all. I'm here to remind Lai Yun that I'll be leaving soon and roaming the world. Thunderclap, I won't allow you to leave, Lai Yun protested. We're already engaged, and if I were to break it just because you don't have 2 arms, what kind of person would I be? But without arms, you'd be a cripple. I wouldn't be able to protect you, nor would I be able to give you happiness. I'm marrying you, not your arms, Lai Yun insisted. Besides, it's not certain that you'll always be without arms. If Pai Batian was able to steal your arms, why can't we take them back? Thunderclap, don't worry. As long as I'm here, no one will be able to bully you. Lai Yun's words caused Thunderclap's eyes to brim with tears, but he forced himself not to shed them. In the end, under Lai Yun's insistence, Lai Fenglan had no choice but to keep Thunderclap and have him personally write a letter to reject Pai Batian's proposal. Miss Lai, could you reconsider the alliance I've proposed? Yun Ruoyan asked again. She could tell that Lai Fenglan doted on Lai Yun to the point that he would do anything for him. As long as she could convince Lai Yun to agree to the alliance, Lai Fenglan would have no problems. What Yun Ruoyan didn't know was that Lai Fenglan's obedience to Lai Yun wasn't just because he spoiled her, but also because Lai Yun had displayed astonishing talent from a young age. As long as she made a decision, she would never make a mistake. I agree to form an alliance with you, Lai Yun said. But I have a condition. What conditions? Yun Ruoyan was overjoyed. When we break through Thunderbolt City, leave Thunderbolt Heaven to me. I want to personally take back Thunderbolt's arm, Lai Yun said word by word. Finally, with Lai Yun's approval, Yun Ruoyan and Liemo rushed back to the Wind City to report the news to Feng Yanyang. Thunderclap sent Yun Ruoyan and Liemo off. Lieyun's a good girl. She's loyal and devoted to you, Yun Ruoyan commented. Yeah. Thunderclap sighed. Lin Tianming finished his cup of wine and had Yun Ruoyan pour him another. Then, he turned to Liemo, Slaughtering King, I wasn't able to attend your wedding with Ruoyan, so consider this cup of wine a belated blessing. Thank you, uncle. Liemo smiled as he finished his cup. Liemo, Ruoyan. Qin Feng also raised a cup of wine to the 2 of them. I wasn't able to attend your wedding either, so this toast is to the both of you. As the meal progressed, Lin Qingxue was the only one who noticed Zhuo Yifeng drinking alone in a corner. Zhuo Yifeng also noticed Lin Qingxue's gaze, but he chose to ignore it. Lin Qingxue was a good girl, and Zhuo Yifeng had always treated her as a younger sister. He knew that he couldn't love her, and he didn't want to hurt her. Sigh. What a pitiful, pitiful person. Zhuo Yifeng was just pouring a cup of bitter wine into his mouth when the sinister voice suddenly rang out in his head. Zhuo Yifeng ignored it and continued drinking his wine. The demon spirit seemed to be someone who was extremely afraid of loneliness, and it would ramble on in Zhuo Yifeng's head whenever it wanted to. Initially, Zhuo Yifeng had grown numb to it. The person you like doesn't like you, and the person you like doesn't like you. This is the saddest thing in the world. But if such a thing were to happen to me, it would instantly become a good thing. Oh, what do you mean? Zhuo Yifeng couldn't help but feel a little tipsy after drinking a dozen cups of wine. Such a thing can only be taught, not explained, the demon spirit replied. If you're willing to let me control your body, I'll only need a day to solve your problem. No, I don't even need a day. Ha, you're trying to trick me, but I won't fall for it. Shui Feng downed another 7 or 8 cups of wine. As the saying went, drinking to drown one's sorrows, only to make them more sorrowful. I've already given up on Yun Ruoyan, Shui Feng replied. No matter how much I like her, I won't ask for anything that doesn't belong to me. Oh, is that so? The demon spirit laughed sinisterly, then fell silent. Shui Feng poured himself a cup of wine and drank by himself. His vision began to blur, but his hearing became unusually clear. Every word of blessing for Yun Ruoyan and Liemo, as well as Yun Ruoyan's radiant smile, pierced Shui Feng's heart. He suddenly felt a strong desire to make Yun Ruoyan his own. In a daze, Shui Feng saw Liemo, who was laughing and whispering with Yun Ruoyan, suddenly transform into himself. He saw himself and Yun Ruoyan looking at each other happily, returning the toast together. This is the deepest desire in your heart. That sinister voice rang out in Shui Feng's mind once more. Startled, Shui Feng hurriedly shook his head, but Li Mo's face was still Shui Feng's. Shui Feng was both shocked and angry, and he stood up from his seat. Chapter 413. She just doesn't know that you like her too. The demon's sinister voice seemed to be enchanted. Think back carefully. Did Yun Ruoyan treat you differently from others? When Shui Feng heard the demon spirit's words, he couldn't help but think back to when he had first met Yun Ruoyan, how she had helped him forge tiger canine arrowheads for him, and how she had arranged for him to stay with the Lin family. Gradually, Shui Feng felt that Yun Ruoyan had indeed taken special care of him. You're not bad yourself. Yun Ruoyan had a good impression of you from the start, but Liemo beat her to it. Is that true? Of course. The demon spirit affirmed, what you need to do now is to snatch Yun Ruoyan back. How? First, let her know your feelings. Mo Ling said. Do you mean you want me to confess? Yes, a confession. The demon spirit further bewitched him, think about it. If one day you accidentally lose your life in battle, and the girl you like doesn't know your feelings for her, that would be the saddest thing in the world. Confess, I want to confess. I must confess before I die. I want to let her know that I like her. Shui Feng's body swayed drunkenly as he walked, mumbling to himself. Midnight had passed, and Yun Ruoyan had finally turned 16. Whether it was on the Qinyuan continent or the Heiyuan continent, 15 was considered an adult, and 16 was a true adult. Under the illumination of the fireworks, Yun Ruoyan couldn't help turning to look at Li Mo, who was hugging her. Sensing her gaze, Liemo turned to look at her. Liemo murmured. You've finally grown up. Yun Ruoyan frowned. I grew up a long time ago. Really? Liemo raised an eyebrow and whispered something into Yun Ruoyan's ear. Yun Ruoyan's face and ears immediately reddened. He said, when we go back, give your husband a child. Yun Ruoyan didn't respond. Instead, she nodded slightly. Li Mo smiled happily, as radiant as the fireworks in the sky, radiating a warm glow. At the end of the night watch, everyone returned to their own courtyards to rest. Sis, can I sleep with you tonight? Lin Qingxue asked pitifully as she tugged at Lin Qingchen's sleeve. If you're not afraid of the little things in my house, then come at me, Lin Qingchen said. Lin Qingchen had not been idle during this period of time. Not only did she learn medical skills from Feng Bo, but she also brought all the rare and strange elixirs, insects that could be used as medicine, and little magical beasts into her courtyard. Every day, apart from eating and resting, she would also cultivate. She continued her previous life as an otaku who specialized in research. Lin Qingxue had originally thought that Lin Qingchen's life was boring and uninteresting, but now she was a little envious of Lin Qingchen, who wasn't bothered by the mundane matters of the outside world and could only focus on doing what she liked. As far as Lin Qingxue could remember, Lin Qingxue had never been bothered by anything for long. Once she immersed herself in her research, the outside world seemed to have nothing to do with her. Of course I'm not afraid. I'm not even afraid of crybabies, so what else can scare me? Lin Qingxue puffed out her chest. Alright, come at me. Lin Qingchen smiled. When Lin Qingxue stepped into Lin Qingchen's courtyard, she couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. What the hell is that? Lin Qingxue pointed at a large cage in the corner of the courtyard, within which was a black, indistinguishable creature that was currently snoring. Its snoring was deafening, and it was clear that the big fellow had fallen asleep. It's a sleeping bear, Lin Qingchen replied. I got a prescription for insomnia from the Count of the Wind, and one of the important ingredients is the blood of this sleeping bear. Lin Qingchen said. Sis, you're the best. When Lin Qingxue heard Lin Qingchen's words, she tugged at the corner of Lin Qingchen's clothes and said coquettishly, How did you know that I've been suffering from insomnia recently? Lin Qingchen glanced at her. Don't think too highly of yourself. This medicine isn't for you. Ha! Then who is it for? Lin Qingxue was a little confused. Uncle doesn't suffer from insomnia. He created his own divine sleeping technique, so he can sleep whenever he wants. Then why don't you let my father teach you? I did, but Uncle said that this technique is only suitable for himself, and that it would harm my body if I practiced it, so he wasn't willing to teach me, Lin Qingxue said helplessly. Lin Qingxue sighed helplessly. She then asked Lin Qingchen curiously, If you're not concocting this medicine for me or Uncle, then who are you concocting it for? Lin Qingchen wouldn't tell her, so Lin Qingxue kept asking. Even after the two of them finished washing up and went to bed, Lin Qingxue still didn't give up. It's for Auntie Hong, the one from the performing arts team. Lin Qingchen was annoyed by her sister's questions. She's currently trying to win over the head of a small family. He has insomnia, and when Auntie Hong came to Wine City last time, she specifically came to visit me and asked if I could prescribe a medicine to treat his insomnia. Oh, so that's how it is. Lin Qingxue tugged at the corner of Lin Qingchen's clothes. Sis, why don't you give me a little more? No. Lin Qingchen mercilessly tugged the corner of her clothes back from her sister's hands. What you have isn't insomnia, but a heart disease, and a heart disease needs medicine to be cured. A heart disease needs medicine to be cured. Lin Qingxue repeated Lin Qingchen's words, muttering to herself, What's the medicine for my heart disease? You like Zhuifeng, but Zhuifeng likes Sister Ruoyan. Lin Qingxue turned around and looked at her sister. In the dim light of the bed, Lin Qingchen's words had hit the nail on the head. She pursed her lips, lowered her eyes, and didn't make a sound. Your heart disease right now is that, first, you can't let go of Zhuifeng, but he's always been cold to you. Second, you're jealous of Sister Ruoyan, jealous that Zhuifeng likes her and not you. I'm not, Lin Qingxue hurriedly denied. I'm just, perhaps not to the extent of jealousy, Lin Qingchen continued. But there's always some resentment. During this period of time, Lin Qingchen could clearly see that Lin Qingxue wasn't as close to her as before, but this was understandable. However, there were a few times when Lin Qingchen noticed that Lin Qingxue's gaze toward Yun Ruoyan was tinged with jealousy, and she wanted to find an opportunity to chat with Lin Qingxue. As a result, even if Lin Qingxue didn't look for Lin Qingchen tonight, Lin Qingchen would look for her of her own accord. But you know better than anyone that Sister Ruoyan's heart has always been with the slaughtering king. Whether Zhuifeng likes you or not has nothing to do with Sister Ruoyan, Lin Qingchen continued. You're just unwilling to admit it. Sister, don't say any more. Lin Qingxue covered her face with her hands. But Lin Qingchen didn't intend to stop. Whether you want to hear it or not, I'm going to say this, whether you like Zhuifeng or not is your own business, and don't resent anyone else. Whether Zhuifeng likes you or not is between the two of you, and don't resent anyone else. You'll be able to sleep soundly if you don't resent anyone else. Lin Qingxue began to cry, her tears seeping through the gaps between her fingers, wetting her hair and Lin Qingxun's pillow. Lin Qingxun rubbed Lin Qingxue's thick earlobes in disgust, recalling how she'd always comforted Lin Qingxue like this when she was scolded for being mischievous. Lin Qingxun said softly, "Cry, cry, you'll be fine once you cry." "Sister, my heart hurts so much," Lin Qingxue whimpered. "No matter how much your heart hurts, it'll slowly get better." Lin Qingxun hugged Lin Qingxue and patted her back. "But if your heart changes color, it'll be hard to change it back." "Sister, do you think I can forget Brother Zhua?" "That's hard to say," Lin Qingxun replied honestly. "It's best if you can forget him, but it's fine if you can't. As long as you remember that liking him is your own business, and don't force anyone else or resent anyone else, you'll be able to live a good life. Perhaps your heart will ache when you think of him, but most of the time, you'll still be happy." "Can I really do that?" Lin Qingxue finally removed her hands from her face and looked at her sister. "Of course." Lin Qingxun's face was full of confidence. "When have I ever lied to you? Have a good sleep. Tomorrow is a new year." Lin Qingxun finally fell into a deep sleep in her sister's embrace. After the new year, there were still 10 days before the truce would end. The Count of the Wind began training the warriors, while Zhui Feng and Qin Feng returned to the ranks of the warriors. For this battle, both of them had been assigned to a secret squad of warriors. They would train together with the elites of the squad, fight together, and complete difficult and dangerous missions together. One day, Yun Ruoyan received a mission from none other than Lin Qingxun herself. Lin Qingxun first sought out Yun Ruoyan and Liemo, then found the Count of the Wind. "Auntie Hong has sent word that the small family she's roped in have decided to contribute as many warriors as they can to help Wind City fight against Thunderbolt City." Lin Qingxun handed a slip of paper to the Count of the Wind. The Count of the Wind took the slip of paper and carefully read the words on it. "Where did you get this news from?" Lin Qingxun told him about the medicine that Auntie Hong had asked her to concoct for insomnia. "Auntie Hong said that once I finished concocting the medicine, I should go to the eastern part of the city to find a traveling merchant called Huaide and give him the medicine." Lin Qingxun said, "A few days ago, I gave the medicine to Huaide. A few days later, Huaide found me and gave me this slip of paper. He said that Auntie Hong had personally written it and asked me to give it to you." Yun Ruoyan saw that the Count of the Wind's expression was a little serious. "Count of the Wind, are you doubting the authenticity of this letter?" Their long hair was disheveled, and their faces were ferocious. Their eyes were wide open, filled with dissatisfaction and indignation. These three people were none other than Guan Ruliu and her two junior sisters. "Rong Yuashan," Yun Ruoyan screamed, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you." Yun Ruoyan's feet lit up with a red sword aura. At the same time, the scarlet eye in her hand appeared, and she leapt into the air and slashed at Rong Yuashan. "Yin, Liemo called out, then followed closely behind Yun Ruoyan. "Protect me." Rong Yuashan's face paled as she hurriedly retreated. The warriors behind her stepped in front of her. Yun Ruoyan's scarlet eye had turned from scarlet to blood red, a sign of bloodlust. None of the 7 or 8 warriors were particularly skilled, and their cultivations were only about the same as Yun Ruoyan's. In front of Liemo, they were nothing more than cannon fodder. Yun Ruoyan's scarlet eye was extremely powerful, and the black-clad warriors who were about the same level of cultivation as Yun Ruoyan were no match for the sword in her hands. In a short while, they were either stabbed to death or half-injured by Yun Ruoyan's sword. Liemo could tell that Yun Ruoyan's violent rage was caused by the demonic dragon's blood in her body, and the only way to quench this rage was with fresh blood. Liemo stood guard by the side, blocking all of the warriors' attacks. All Yunruoyan had to do was stab the scarlet eye into the bodies of her enemies and use their blood to quench her rage. Rong Yuashan began to panic. You can't kill me. I'm a member of the Li family now, and I've pledged my allegiance to the Li family. After Lai Sun had carved that word on her face, Rong Yuashan knew that she wouldn't be able to make a name for herself in the Feng family. At that time, the Li family was busy trying to capture Yunruoyan and Feng Yicheng. As the saying went, the enemy of an enemy was a friend. As a result, Rong Yuashan escaped from the Feng family and successfully pledged her allegiance to the Li family. When Guan Ruliu and the other two arrived at Lai City and learned that Rong Yuashan had escaped, they followed the traces she had left behind all the way to the Li family. Just as they were about to sneak into the Li manor, they were caught by Guan Ruliu, who had long since been on guard. In the end, they died in the dungeon where Zhuo Feng had been tortured. As Yunruoyan chopped vegetables, she glanced at Rong Yuashan coldly. The Li family deserves to die even more. Yunruoyan chopped off the head of one of the black-clad warriors and appeared in front of Rong Yuashan. She pointed the scarlet eye at the tip of Rong Yuashan's nose. You can't kill me. Rong Yuashan cried out in fear. The Li family has captured the entire troop, everyone. I'm here to tell you all to surrender now, or else everyone in the art team will die. Rong Yuashan's hand trembled as she held on to the scarlet eye. Then I'll kill you first. And Feng Mian, the Li family has captured Feng Mian, the only son of Feng Yanyang, the young lord of Wind City. Rong Yuashan hurriedly added, I'm only here to pass on a message. If you kill me, one of the troop's members will die with me. I heard that a girl named Xiao Qing was on good terms with you, so I chose her as my scapegoat. If I don't return in time, she'll die a horrible death, just like the rest of them, ah ha ha. Rong Yuashan pointed at the boxes on the ground and laughed sinisterly. One of the boxes was tilted to the side, and Guan Ruliu's head rolled out of it. His eyes stared fixedly at Rong Yuashan. Rong Yuashan's laughter abruptly stopped. In a trembling voice, she said, Don't look at me, you're the ones who asked to die. You can't blame me for this, I didn't kill you. Those fellow disciples were not killed by me, but by the warriors of the Lai clan. I didn't want to kill you, but you forced my hand. Rong Yuashan's sinister smile turned into a grimace. Tears and snot flowed down her face, and the scratches on her face made her look like a ghost. Go. Yunruoyan put away the scarlet eye. Before I kill the troop sisters and the young lord of the city, you'd better find a place to hide. Otherwise, if I find you, I'll tear you to shreds. Thunderflame paused for a moment before saying, That's fine. However, this girl's heart is filled with venom. Tian, you have to be careful of her. Your son will remember. Thunderflame bowed. Seeing that Thunderflame's complexion had improved slightly, he continued, This time, although we've been used by the Feng family, at least we've gained quite a few captives. Even if we can't kill or use them now due to the pressure of public opinion, they'll still be useful in the future. Moreover, Thunderflame leaned closer to Thunderflame's ear, speaking in a voice that only the two of them could hear, Your son also has some ideas. Father, do you think it's feasible? Thunderflame whispered in Thunderflame's ear for a long time. Thunderflame nodded as he listened, the anger on his face slowly turning into a smile. After whispering, Thunderbolt Badian placed his hands behind his back and looked at Thunderflame's expression. From his expression, Thunderbolt Badian could tell that his father agreed with his idea. Not bad. As expected, Thunderflame was full of praise. Tian, the student has truly surpassed the master. In the future, your achievements will definitely surpass your father. Tian, only wishes to help father bring the Nether Abyss continent under our Thunderflame clan's feet. I want to help father accomplish your ambitions. Thunderflame bowed once more. Thunderflame looked at Thunderflame and smiled in satisfaction. Young lord, this servant. The moment Thunderflame entered the master bedroom in his courtyard, a veiled beauty came forward to greet him. However, in the next instant, there was a loud slap. Thunderflame's palm landed on the beauty's cheek, causing her to fall to the ground. There's no need for you to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a pot of oil. Pi Badian smiled sinisterly. This beautiful task will definitely call you. The guard was somewhat puzzled. He lifted his head to look at Pi Badian and asked, I wonder what young master is referring to. This wonderful task is the beautiful women in that cell. You will be responsible for finding warriors like you. Of course, you can also do it yourself. In short, no matter what methods you use, serve them well for me. Pi Badian cruelly said, you must make them suffer a fate worse than death. It doesn't matter even if they die. Then hang them at the city gate and paste the slogan, spy, on their bodies. Spread the word that they are spies sent by Wind City and are vixens. Let the entire city curse and trample on them. Yes, this slave obeys. The wretched-looking guard smiled. His smile was so wretched that it couldn't be described with words. Thunderbolt Badian averted his gaze and was about to walk to the next cell when he suddenly thought of something. He turned his head and said, don't touch the red-clothed woman in the corner and the woman with some cultivation beside her for now. Yes, young master. The wretched-looking guard bowed again. Only then did Pi Badian walk to the next cell with satisfaction. Roan Yuashan followed behind Pi Badian. As she passed by the interrogation room and the hundreds of torture instruments, her footsteps were neither fast nor slow, neither light nor heavy, as though she was taking a leisurely stroll in the courtyard. Pi Badian was quite satisfied with her performance to be so calm in such a place. But only Roan Yuashan knew that her heart was beating like a drum at this moment. If it weren't for the cloak covering her back, people would definitely see that her clothes were soaked in cold sweat. After walking past the interrogation room, there was a smaller cell. In this cell was the young master of Wind City, Feng Mian. Feng Mian didn't sleep. Instead, he was sitting on a hard wooden couch. Next to the wooden couch was a wooden table. An oil lamp flickered weakly, illuminating a bowl of cold porridge and 2 cold steamed buns. Although Feng Yanyang had never spoiled Feng Mian, the Feng clan had always been very particular about food, drink, and accommodation. A place like this was undoubtedly a place of purgatory for Feng Mian. It was already very good that he could still maintain his tidy appearance and demeanor. Young Master Feng, you have been wronged. I invited you as a guest, but you have to stay in a place like this. Pi Badian stood outside the cell and said to Feng Mian through the iron bars. When Feng Mian heard Pi Badian's voice, his slightly narrowed eyes suddenly opened and his body abruptly straightened. He was obviously startled by Pi Badian's sudden arrival. Young Master Pi. Feng Mian vigilantly looked at Pi Badian and said, what is your purpose in coming here now? Chapter 4:17. Brother Feng, it's not that I want to discourage you, but this is the truth. Thunderbolt Badian coldly said, I'm afraid your father already sees you as a stumbling block in his path of dominating the Nether Abyss continent. That's why he wants to borrow the Thunderbolt clan's hand to eliminate you. This way, the Thunderbolt clan will be cursed by the world and won't be popular. No, it's not like that. Wind Crown kept shaking his head. The fear of being captured, coupled with the fact that he had been locked up for the past few days and Thunderclap Heaven's attack in the middle of the night, had caused Wind Crown's brain to become sluggish. It was easier for him to trust his own ears than his own family. But my father and I don't want to do as he wishes. Thunderbolt Badian continued, we won't kill you. Guards! Thunderclap Badian ordered. Soon, another guard stepped forward and asked Thunderclap Batian if he had any instructions. Open the cell door. Thunderbolt Batian said, prepare a good room for young Lord Feng and treat him well. Yes, this lowly one will do it right away. The guard opened the door of the cell and ran out like a wisp of smoke. Yueshan, go help young noble Feng out. Thunderbolt Batian gave Rong Yueshan a look. Rong Yueshan quickly went into the cell and helped the dazed Feng Mian out. You really want to let me out? Feng Mian asked, what are your conditions? Although Feng Mian wasn't a very talented person, he wasn't stupid either. He naturally knew that everything had a purpose. The Feng and Thunderbolt clans have never been on good terms. I don't have any friendship with you, young Lord Thunderbolt. Feng Mian said word by word. In reality, it was not as simple as having no friendship between the two of them. In the past, the two of them had fought and verbally offended each other on many occasions. Brother Feng. Thunderbolt Batian smiled faintly. As the saying goes, no discord, no concord. I believe that you aren't such a narrow-minded person. As for what you want, I naturally do. However, my Thunderbolt clan isn't after your life. Thunderbolt Batian didn't tell Feng Mian what he wanted. He only said that he would tell him when the time came. Seeing that Thunderbolt Batian didn't want to say anything, Feng Mian nervously left the cell. As soon as he left the cell, he took a deep breath of the outside air. The rotten smell in the cell made him suffocate for the past 2 days, and the humid air made him uncomfortable all over. Wind Crown no longer cared about any schemes. He only wanted to quickly take a hot bath and have a good sleep on a comfortable, soft bed. It would be best if he woke up with good wine and food to fill his empty stomach for a few days. All of these were realized under Thunderclap Batian's orders. Not only that, Thunderclap Batian even sent Rong Yueshan into Wind Crown's room to serve him. 4 of the 5 warriors had been killed on the spot, and the missing one had been identified by Wind Crown's personal bodyguard as the one who had instigated Wind Crown. This personal warrior of the Wind Crown was sent by Feng Yanjin to supervise the Wind Crown. This time, he was ordered by the Wind Crown to do something else, which was why he was able to escape. City Lord, don't be too angry at the young City Lord, Feng Bo consoled. This was clearly a ploy by the Thunderbolt family. It's understandable that the young City Lord would fall into their trap at such a young age. In terms of age, Yicheng is 3 years younger than Mian Er, but he's mature and reliable. If only Mian Er were half as capable as Yicheng, I'd be satisfied. City Lord, you flatter me. I'm still lacking in many areas. Feng Yicheng hurriedly bowed. City Lord, Feng Bo began. Count Feng said, the most important thing right now is how to save the young City Lord. Under the pressure of public opinion, the Thunderbolt clan wouldn't dare to kill the young City Lord, so we can find an opportunity to enter Thunderbolt City and think of a way to save the young City Lord. The Thunderbolt family will surely keep a close eye on Mian Er. I'm afraid it won't be easy to rescue him, Feng Yanyang said with a worried expression. Yun Ruoyan and Liemo glanced at each other and reached an agreement. Yun Ruoyan stepped forward. City Lord Feng, if you can trust us, please leave the task of rescuing the young City Lord to us. Yun Ruoyan and Liemo came from the City Lord's manor, and they're very familiar with the city, as well as the entirety of Thunderbolt City. They're the most suitable candidates for this task, Feng Bo added. Feng Yanyang's gaze landed on Yun Ruoyan and Liemo, and the worry on his face faded into anticipation. That's good. I'll leave this matter to the two of you. Feng Yanyang had personally witnessed Limeo's expedition to Thunderbolt City to rescue Yun Ruoyan and Zhuifeng, and he naturally knew that they'd barely made it out alive. He hadn't expected that Yun Ruoyan and Liemo would still be willing to risk their lives for the Feng family, and he was quite touched. Since the decision had been made, Yun Ruoyan and Liemo prepared to set off the next day. After dinner, Lin Qingchen called Yun Ruoyan over for a chat. This time, Lin Qingchen had volunteered to come to the front lines, while Lin Qingxue had stayed behind to take care of Lin Tianming. Because Lin Qingchen's medical skills were exceptional, Feng Bo had agreed to let her tag along. In fact, Lin Qingchen's mission this time was to retrieve the spatial ring that had been passed down from her ancestors. When she learned that Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo were planning to enter the city lord's manor, she wanted Yun Ruoyan to help her keep an eye out for the ring's whereabouts, to see if it was indeed in Thunderbolt Beishan's hands. All she did was subconsciously kick and kick at Zhuifeng, but Zhuifeng didn't seem to care at all. In fact, he seemed to be enjoying it. Yun Ruoyan's taste was so torturous that he couldn't free himself from it. At this moment, a black figure floated over, followed by a gust of wind. The gust of wind carried with it a violent force that sent Zhuifeng flying. With a loud bang, he fell heavily onto the stone pavement. Li Mo, Yun Ruoyan's breathing was a little ragged from Zhuifeng's kiss. Because of the intense struggle, her hair was a little messy, and her lips were a little swollen. Zhuifeng's fingers had left clear marks on her fair, supple face. When Li Mo saw Yun Ruoyan in such a state, a green light flashed in his eyes. Yun Ruoyan grabbed Zhuifeng and shook her head without saying a word. Yun Ruoyan knew that Li Mo's eyes would only flash green when his emotions were particularly intense, or when his killing intent was particularly strong. That green light just now was a clear indication that he wanted to kill Zhuifeng. Li Mo suppressed the rage in his heart, as well as the indescribable feeling that his most delicious candy had been stolen by someone else. He finally closed his eyes, suppressed his anger, and pulled Yun Ruoyan's hand toward Zhuifeng. He raised his palm above Li Mo's head, and a large ball of water appeared. As Li Mo clenched his fist, the ball of water exploded, and cold water splashed onto Zhuifeng's head, face, and body. Ah! Zhuifeng screamed at the shock of the ice-cold water. He sat up from the ground and wiped the icy water off his face. Only then did he wake up. "What's wrong with me? Why am I here?" he murmured, as if he didn't know what had just happened. "Zhuifeng." Li Mo's cold voice rang out from above his head. "If not for the fact that you're a beastkin, I wouldn't have splashed you with cold water, but with yen, ers and my anger. If this happens again, I can't guarantee that I won't tear you to shreds." Zhuifeng raised his head to look at Li Mo. Under the shadow of his long hair, Zhuifeng couldn't see his expression, but from his tone, Zhuifeng could sense his anger. Zhuifeng then turned his gaze to Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan didn't avoid his gaze. Her large eyes met his, still filled with disbelief, confusion, and, most of all, disappointment. Zhuifeng's mind went blank, and everything that had just happened began to surface in his mind. Those drunken words, those heartfelt words, those actions that he had taken against Yun Ruoyan, and that he had kissed Yun Ruoyan forcefully. That warm sensation still lingered on Zhuifeng's lips, and he couldn't help but blush, his heart racing, and his mind buzzing. What did I just do?" Zhuifeng pulled at his hair. Li Mo, Yun Ruoyan saw that Zhuifeng had woken up, but she didn't want to see his pained and regretful expression. She tugged on Li Mo's sleeve. "Let's go back." Li Mo turned back to look at Yun Ruoyan warmly, nodded at her, then pulled her along as they walked around Zhuifeng. Zhuifeng sat on the ground, the image of Yun Ruoyan's disappointed expression etched into his mind. Zhuifeng jumped up from the ground and chased after Yun Ruoyan, wanting to apologize. Li Mo, however, didn't give him a chance to speak. With a wave of his sleeves, he sent Zhuifeng flying once more. Zhuifeng lay on the ground, staring at Yun Ruoyan's back. He smiled bitterly at the devil spirit in his mind. "Are you satisfied now? Are you satisfied now?" Chapter 419. On the bed, Liemo gently hugged Yun Ruoyan, his fingers involuntarily caressing her face, her hair, her lips, and especially her lips, as if he were trying to erase Shui Feng's imprint on them. "Liemo, you're hurting me," Yun Ruoyan whispered as she grabbed Liemo's hand. As soon as she finished speaking, Liemo flipped her over and covered her body with his lips pressing tightly against hers. The image of Shui Feng kissing Yun Ruoyan floated uncontrollably in Liemo's mind, and his heart ached more and more. His kisses became harder and more forceful, more and more domineering, more and more unbearable for Yun Ruoyan, and more resistant she felt. Yun Ruoyan reached out to push Liemo away, but both her hands were pinned above her head by Liemo. She tried to kick Liemo with her legs, only to be pinned down by him as well. Liemo was still invading her uncontrollably, in a way that she hated the most. She hadn't felt this way in a long time. Yun Ruoyan had thought that she would never feel this way again, but at this moment, she once again felt that sense of helplessness. Shui Feng's treatment of Yun Ruoyan left her disappointed, but Liemo's treatment of her left Yun Ruoyan deeply hurt and pained. Tears finally flowed uncontrollably from Yun Ruoyan's eyes, flowing down her cheeks and into her lips, into their entwined lips. Yun Ruoyan tasted her tears, and Liemo tasted them as well. Liemo abruptly came to his senses, and he immediately stopped what he was doing. He raised his head to look at Yun Ruoyan's tear-stained face, and his heart ached as if it had been pierced by a needle. Beneath him was his wife, the woman he loved the most. How could he hurt her so violently? "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Did I hurt you?" Liemo began to carefully wipe away Yun Ruoyan's tears, but Yun Ruoyan simply closed her eyes and ignored him. However, tears continued to flow from her eyes. Can you stop crying?" Liemo didn't know what to do. "I've said before that your tears are my greatest punishment. I really know I was wrong. Why don't you slap me a couple of times to appease your anger?" Liemo grabbed Yun Ruoyan's hands and slapped them against his own face. Yun Ruoyan only heard 2 crisp smacks before she struggled out of Liemo's grasp. Afraid that he would hurt her again, Liemo didn't dare to force himself on her, and could only swear to the heavens. I was really blinded by jealousy just now. When I saw how Shui Feng treated you, I really wanted to go crazy, but I had no choice but to suppress my anger. I didn't manage my emotions well enough, which is why I vented my anger on you. I'm truly in the wrong. I swear that if I ever hurt my wife like that again, I'll have my heart pierced by 1,000 swords. A warm hand covered Liemo's mouth. Liemo grabbed Yun Ruoyan's hand and kissed her palm deeply. You've forgiven me, haven't you? I've said all the good things I've said to you over the past 2 years. Yun Ruoyan forcefully pulled her hand out of Liemo's grasp. You've already done what you shouldn't have. What's the point of swearing now? Then, what do you want me to do? As long as you say it, I'll definitely do it. Alright, you said it. Yun Ruoyan finally looked up at Liemo, seeing that she was beginning to soften. Liemo hurriedly said, "Yes, I said it. As long as it's a request, I'll definitely do it. I want you to not touch me for a year." Yun Ruoyan stared into Liemo's eyes. Liemo paused. Clearly, he hadn't expected Yun Ruoyan to make such a request. He couldn't help but frown. For the first time in his life, an expression of bitterness and helplessness appeared on his face. Then what about our dual cultivation technique? We've already reached the 3rd stage, and if we work a little harder, we'll be able to reach the 4th stage. Stop. Yun Ruoyan responded with a single word. Don't you want to be my husband? Liemo's words were directed at Yun Ruoyan's ear, and the warm wind blew against her earlobe, causing her to shiver. After being husband and wife for more than a year, Liemo had a deep understanding of Yun Ruoyan's body, and her earlobe was her most sensitive spot. Seeing that Yun Ruoyan seemed to have been aroused by his teasing, Liemo once again pressed his body against hers to steady her. This time, his kiss was as gentle as a feather brushing against her lips, bringing with it an electric current. Liemo was very satisfied with Yun Ruoyan's reaction, and he continued. At the most crucial step, Yun Ruoyan grabbed his hand and stopped him. "What's the matter, Yen-er?" Liemo panted. Yun Ruoyan didn't answer his question. Instead, she pulled his hand up and placed it on her abdomen. Liemo didn't react in time. Instead, he stared at Yun Ruoyan in a daze. "Are you feeling unwell? Does your stomach hurt? Do you want me to transfer some spiritual energy to you?" As he spoke, he began to infuse spiritual energy into Liemo's abdomen. "Liemo," Yun Ruoyan finally called out, "I don't have a stomach ache, and I'm not feeling unwell." Liemo looked at Yun Ruoyan, waiting for her to continue. "I haven't come to the Kuei bath in 2 months, Yun Ruoyan murmured. "What did you say, Yen-er? You haven't come to the Kuei bath in 2 months. Even though Liemo didn't know much about women's affairs, Yun Ruoyan's words made sense to him. "Yen-er, do you mean to say that you're pregnant with our child?" Liemo stared at Yun Ruoyan's abdomen with a burning gaze, his palm pressed against it. A blue light flashed in Liemo's eyes, and he began to smile. That smile grew wider and wider, and gradually, his laughter grew louder and louder. It was rare for Liemo to laugh out loud, and even more so for him to raise his head to the sky and roar with joy. Startled, Yun Ruoyan sat up and covered Liemo's mouth with her hand. "Don't scare the people around you. Yen-er, we're going to have a child. I'm going to have an heir." Liemo suppressed his excitement and laughed. "Not necessarily." Afraid that Liemo would go crazy again, Yun Ruoyan hurriedly explained, "It's just that I haven't come to the Kuei bath in 2 months. The maids at home have taught me that a woman's period of time is considered to be less than 2 months, so I suspect that I'm pregnant. However, I've been so busy recently that I haven't had the time to have someone take a look at me. I understand, and the maids at home have taught me as well." As Liemo spoke, he chastised himself for his carelessness. How could he not have noticed that Yun Ruoyan hadn't come to the Kuei bath in 2 months? Thinking back to how Yun Ruoyan had been traveling with him, and how she had even experienced a huge battle just a day ago, he wondered if she had frightened the child in her abdomen. "No," Liemo replied. "Tomorrow, I'll have the Count of the Wind take a look at you. And Lin Qingchen is a woman, and women understand women better than women. Also, you can't come with me to Thunderbolt City tomorrow. I can't let you take such a risk." Liemo, Yun Ruoyan's expression changed once more. "What did you just say? Do you remember?" What did I say?" "You said that you'd listen to everything I said." "That's right. Except for the child." Liemo hurriedly corrected himself. Seeing that Liemo was determined, Yun Ruoyan continued slowly, "I didn't go see a doctor because I didn't want to alarm you. I was planning on having the Count of the Wind and Qingchen look at me only after I'm back from this trip." "How can you do that?" Liemo immediately retorted. "Liemo, I've already made up my mind." Yun Ruoyan was even more certain of her decision. "I've told you before that no one can force me to do anything, and no one can force me not to do anything. Not my enemies, not my lovers. In this life, I'll only listen to myself." In the end, Liemo couldn't argue with Yun Ruoyan any further. He could only suppress his heartache and conceal the news. The next day, he set off for Thunderbolt City with Yun Ruoyan. On the journey, Liemo's care and concern for Yun Ruoyan multiplied several times over. His eyes never left Yun Ruoyan's body, and his hands were constantly clutching her hand, giving Yun Ruoyan the illusion that the two of them were conjoined twins. This feeling made Yun Ruoyan feel both exasperated and sweet. After a day and 2 nights of travel, the two of them finally arrived at the city lord's manor. Originally, they were supposed to enter the manor that very night, but Liemo insisted on staying with Yun Ruoyan at an inn in the city center, preparing to enter the manor the next night. The next day, after a night's rest, Yun Ruoyan suddenly learned of a heart-wrenching incident from the inn's waiter. As the waiter served tea to Yun Ruoyan in Yun Ruoyan's room, he vividly described how the female geishas who had been captured by the city lord's manor had been hung on the city's walls. Every day, one of them was hung at the city gates, and this was already the 15th. In the beginning, they were still breathing, but in the end, they either starved to death or couldn't bear the pain and bit their tongues to commit suicide. The waiter said that when he went to check on them the previous day, only 2 of them were still able to open their eyes. Chapter 420. With a loud crash, the teacup in Yun Ruoyan's hand fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. "Madam, are you all right?" The waiter was startled and hurriedly asked Yun Ruoyan, whose eyes were filled with tears as she looked at Liemo. "I'm fine." Liemo walked to Yun Ruoyan's side and held her hand in his. "Why didn't we see them when we entered the city?" The waiter replied, "Those girls were sent from Windwind City, so they were hung at the eastern gate facing Windwind City. The 2 of you probably entered from another gate, so you didn't see them." Liemo took out a spirit crystal from his pocket and tipped the waiter, who happily left the restaurant. "Yen, you have to stay calm." Liemo rubbed Yun Ruoyan's hands as he spoke. Yun Ruoyan's hands turned cold the moment she heard the news, and so did her entire body. Yun Ruoyan tightly closed her eyes, and the faces of the girls in the dance troupe appeared in her mind one by one. There was Hoodlum, who had the temperament of a boy and the cultivation of a cultivator. There was also Auntie Hong, who had been through many hardships but was exceptionally strong, and there was also Xiao Qing, who had always treated her as a younger sister. Yun Ruoyan took a deep breath. When she opened her eyes again, her gaze was resolute. "I want to see them." "All right, let's go tonight." Liemo continued to warm Yun Ruoyan's hands as he spoke. At night, the night was dark and everything was quiet. 15 women were hanging on the gate of the eastern city. Their once plump and beautiful bodies were now as withered as a leaf in the wind, swaying back and forth in the chilly breeze. When they were first hung up, they were quite pretty, but they grew uglier and uglier by the day, 2 warriors on night watch said as they drank wine to warm their bodies. "Did the young governor say when he was going to release them?" "It's quite creepy to look at them like this," one of the warriors said. "What are you afraid of, coward?" The other warrior laughed disdainfully. "She was a slut when she was alive, and she's still a slut when she's dead. What's there to be afraid of? No matter what, he's still a human." The warrior from earlier added, "Let's not talk about ghosts first. It's already spring. When the weather warms up, won't these corpses stink? At that time, how can they keep watch at night? The stench will die. Isn't it not smelly yet?" Another warrior gulped down a large mouthful of wine, and then his whole body quivered. He stood up with a smile on his face and said, "Today I heard a woman speak. She kept saying that she was thirsty. I'm going to feed that smelly woman some good water." The warrior said as he untied the belt of his warrior uniform. But before he could take a step forward, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him like a ghost. As soon as he reacted, his mind went into a daze. Yun Ruoyan had thrown a handful of bewitching powder at him, and the warrior behind him had already fallen asleep under the effects of the powder. "Go to one side and drink all of your own good water," Yun Ruoyan ordered the dumbstruck warrior. "Yes, master." The warrior replied mechanically, then walked to the side according to Yun Ruoyan's orders, unbuttoned his pants, and began to drink by himself. Yun Ruoyan was about to use her scarlet eye to decapitate the 2 warriors, but she was stopped by Liemo. Yun Ruoyan's sword rose to the top of the city walls, and she looked at the familiar faces one by one. Although they were beyond recognition and had no signs of life, Yunruoyan could still call out their names one by one. The one who could sing was Sister Linghua, Sister Qing Luo could play the zither, and Sister Yaohua could play the flute. Xiao Yunruoyan finally saw Sister Qing Qing. Qing Qing was so thin that only her bones were left, and she still seemed to have her usual playful smile on her face. Sister Qing Qing. Yunruoyan finally couldn't hold back her tears any longer. Little White Rabbit, you're finally here. Suddenly, Qing Qing opened her mouth. Sister Qing Qing, it's great that you're still alive. Yunruoyan cried tears of joy as she hurriedly untied Qing Qing from the top of the city walls. She was about to take her away when Qing Qing stopped her. Qing Qing told Yunruoyan to put her down, saying that she had something very important to tell her. Yunruoyan had no choice but to carry Qing Qing to the top of the city walls. Yunruoyan held Qing Qing in her arms as Li Mo took off his black cloak and covered Qing Qing's naked body. Sister Qing Qing, what's so important about this? Can we talk about it when we get back? Qing Qing shook her head weakly. It's too late. I've been hanging on to my last breath, hoping to see you again. The heavens have eyes, and you've finally arrived. Sister Qing Qing, what do you have to tell me? Yunruoyan realized that the matter Qing Qing was talking about had to be extremely important. Qing Qing's breathing suddenly quickened, and Li Mo hurriedly squatted down and infused her with some spiritual energy. Only then did Qing Qing calm down a little. Hurry, hurry and save Auntie Hong and Ah Fei. With her last breath, Qing Qing told Yunruoyan the location of the dungeon where Auntie Hong and Ah Fei were locked up. Li Mo immediately knew where they were. I know where you're talking about. We'll definitely save Auntie Hong. Only then did Qing Qing smile, as if relieved of a burden. Little bunny. Ah, Sister Qing Qing, I'm here. Yunruoyan tightly hugged Qing Qing's bony body. I'm thirsty, and I want a drink. All right, Yunruoyan nodded. Li Mo took out a flask of wine, opened the lid, and handed it to Yunruoyan. Yunruoyan fed Qing Qing mouthful by mouthful, but Qing Qing had already lost the ability to swallow, and the wine flowed out of her mouth. Sister Qing Qing. Yunruoyan couldn't hold back her tears any longer. Little bunny, don't cry, this is good wine, fragrant and spicy, Qing Qing said. It tastes just like the wine my mother brewed for my father when I was young. Don't be sad, bunny, I can finally see my mother and father again. Little Qing finally breathed its last breath in Yunruoyan's arms. At the same time, the sky was beginning to brighten. The two of them could only go to the governor's manor the next night. This time, not only did they have to rescue Feng Mian, but they also had to rescue Auntie Hong and Ah Fei. Yunruoyan personally hung Qing Qing from the city gates once more. Sister Qing Qing, Sister Qing Luo, Sister Linghua, Sister Danhua. Yunruoyan walked past her 15 sisters one by one, her tone resolute. I'll definitely avenge all of you, and let you rest in peace. Wait for me. By the time the sun had risen, Yunruoyan and Li Mo had already returned to the inn. The two warriors who had been keeping watch woke up, completely unaware of when they had fallen asleep last night. Paw, paw, paw. The warrior who had drunk his best wine spat on the ground, then turned to the other warrior. Was that yellow wine you drank last night? Was that yellow dog piss? Why does my mouth smell like piss after just a few sips? You're the one who drank yellow dog piss. That's top-grade yellow wine, and it cost me 2 spirit stones. Why don't you have another sip? No, stay away from me. Tui. The two warriors went down the city gates, one after another, leaving behind only the 15 souls waiting for Yunruoyan to avenge them. Night fell quickly, and Yun Ruoyan and Liemo managed to sneak into the governor's manor. It was as heavily guarded as ever, if not more so than it had always been. But to Yun Ruoyan and Liemo, these were mere decorations. The two of them first went to the dungeon that Qing Qing had mentioned, successfully bewitching the guards within, and then unlocking the door with a key. When Yun Ruoyan saw that Hoodlum and Auntie Hong were both unharmed, the weight in her heart finally fell to the ground. Before they set off, Feng Yicheng had specifically sought out Yun Ruoyan, hoping that she could rescue Auntie Hong if possible. Although Feng Yicheng's words were tactful, it was clear from his gaze that he had high hopes for Yun Ruoyan, and Liemo Yun Ruoyan could also see that he was deeply in love with Auntie Hong. Thank the heavens, Auntie Hong, Hoodlum, you're both fine. How did you find this place? Both Auntie Hong and Hoodlum asked at the same time. Yun Ruoyan's expression was sorrowful. Sister Qing Qing told me. Qing Qing, where is she? Did you save her? And the other sisters, where are they now? Auntie Hong asked agitatedly. They're all gone, Yun Ruoyan replied bitterly. It was Lei Batian who killed them. I won't let him get away with it. When Auntie Hong heard these words, her entire body went limp, and her eyes lost their luster. Auntie Hong, we'll take you out of here right now. Yun Ruoyan tried to pull her up, but found that she wouldn't cooperate at all. I'm not going out, Auntie Hong muttered. I want to stay with my sisters. What nonsense are you spouting? Yun Ruoyan was so anxious that her eyes were red. Sister Qing Qing left her last breath so that I could save you, but you're not coming with me. Ruoyan, listen to me, Auntie Hong said. I'm still useful, and they won't do anything to me. I can't let my sisters die in vain, and I have to expose the Lei family's crimes to the world, so I have to stay here. Ruoyan, take Hoodlum with you. Miss, if you're not going, I'm not going either, Hoodlum muttered, her silent tears streaming down her face. Hoodlum, listen to me. I have a mission for you, Auntie Hong said. Auntie Hong said, only you and I and the entire dance troupe know the origins of all the sisters, their original names, and their ancestral tombs. I want you to wait until the Pai clan is annihilated in the future and bury all the sisters' bones in their respective ancestral tombs. This was their wish when they were alive. However, there are many of them whose ancestral graves have not been preserved. You can bury them with me so that they can accompany me. Chapter 421. Miss, I beg of you, please come with us. Hoodlum knelt in front of Auntie Hong and begged her. Hoodlum. Auntie Hong gently stroked Hoodlum's hair. If you still recognize me as your mistress, then be obedient and help me complete the task I've entrusted you with. That way, we won't be sisters in vain. Auntie Hong, Yun Ruoyan said anxiously, don't you want to see Feng Yicheng again? Yun Ruoyan remembered that day when Feng Yicheng had sent Auntie Hong off. He had said that the two of them had reached the stage of marriage. Yun Ruoyan hoped that Auntie Hong would take care of herself for the sake of their relationship. I once swore in front of my sisters that I would live and die with them. If I abandoned them, I would never be able to live in peace. Auntie Hong smiled bitterly. In the end, Feng Yicheng and I weren't fated to be together. Alright, since you've already made up your mind, we won't force you. Yun Ruoyan sighed, then waved her hand and sent a colorless and odorless bewitching powder at Auntie Hong. However, Auntie Hong and Hoodlum had long since developed their own defenses against bewitching drugs. She only covered her mouth and nose. Hurry up and save the young city lord. Don't waste any more time here. Seeing that Auntie Hong had made up her mind, Hoodlum could only tearfully bid her farewell and leave the cell with Yun Ruoyan and Liemo. Yun Ruoyan and Liemo learned from Hoodlum that Thunderbolt Batian had brought Wind Crown out of the cell, but they didn't know where he was. As soon as the three of them left the prison, they began searching the Thunder Manor. However, it wasn't easy to find a single person in such a large manor. Yunru Oyan used a bewitching powder on 4 of the patrolling warriors, but none of them were able to find the wind crown. As the sky brightened, the 3 of them left the manor and returned to the inn. When they returned to the inn, they received a letter from Mo. The letter was written by Feng Yannyang himself, and it inquired about their progress in rescuing Wind Crown. He also informed them that the 2 cities were on the brink of war, and that it would erupt at any moment. Mo wrote a letter back. He told the Feng family that he had entered the Thunderbolt Manor that night and hadn't been able to find Feng Mian. Then, he followed Auntie Hong's suggestion and had the Feng family spread the news that the performance team had been killed. According to Auntie Hong, the geisha captain was active in the Thunder family, Wu family, and Qin family. She had deep connections with many of the smaller families in these 3 families. Their tragic ending showed the cruel nature of the Thunder clan. This would definitely cause many small clans to be dissatisfied with the Thunder clan. Once the war began, the strength of these small families would not be underestimated. If they could change sides at the last moment, it would definitely affect the situation of the entire war. According to Hoodlum, after she and Auntie Hong were locked up in a cell, besides the daily meals that were delivered to them, very few people asked about them. In addition to Auntie Hong's disguise, no one would discover that she had disappeared for a short period of time. Moreover, the 2 of them were sure that Wind Crown was absolutely useful to the Thunderbolt clan. Before the battle officially started, his life would not be in danger. Therefore, the 2 of them were not in a hurry to enter the Thunderbolt residence. 2 days later, Murphy brought another letter from Feng Yannyang. Feng Yannyang's letter stated that he had already spread the news of the geisha captain's tragic death, and that many of the smaller families had contacted the Fengs in private, expressing their willingness to change sides during the war. In addition, Feng Yannyang decided that, regardless of whether Yunru Oyan and Mo were able to rescue Wind Crown, he would launch an attack on the Thunderbolt family in 5 days. News of the battle between the Thunderbolt and Feng families had also spread, and news of the Lai family's alliance with the Fengs had also been made public. With the Lai family's addition, the Feng family's strength increased exponentially. Some of the citizens of Thunderbolt, who had been confident in Thunderbolt's victory, began to worry, but most of them were still very confident. In the evening, Yunru Oyan and Mo hid in a tea house near the city lord's manor, waiting for nightfall before entering the manor again to search for Wind Crown. So what if the Lai and Feng families form an alliance? The Thunderbolt is the dominant family for a long time, and they're definitely not a force that the Feng can contend with. Last year, the Thunderbolt took over 5 of the Feng's smaller cities. That's hard to say. These past few years, the Feng family's momentum has been too strong, and now that they've gained the support of the Lai family, their strength can't be underestimated. Otherwise, why would our city lord kidnap the young lord of the Feng family and use him as a hostage? He must be feeling guilty and afraid of losing on the battlefield. I've heard of this as well. The head of the Feng family is furious, saying that he wants justice from the Thunderbolt family. That's why he's ignoring the truce agreement and gathering a large number of warriors at the border of the city, ready to attack Thunderbolt at any moment. Just as the 2 of them were listening to the chatter of the people in the tea house, a carriage stopped in front of the tea house. Mo's brows furrowed. He leaned close to Yunru Oyan and said, "There's a familiar aura in the carriage. Let's retreat." Then, he pulled Yunru Oyan into the rear hall. The carriage stopped at the entrance of the tea house, and 3 people alighted, 2 men and 1 woman. The man in the lead was a well-known figure in Thunderbolt City, the young lord of Thunderbolt City, Pai Batian. As soon as Pai Batian and his entourage entered the tea house, they immediately attracted everyone's attention. The noisy hall instantly turned silent. Behind Pai Batian was a young man dressed in an embroidered robe, and by his side was a veiled woman. The tea house proprietor received a servant's report and hurried out of the rear hall to greet Pai Batian. "Welcome, young lord. My humble tea house is truly grand. I'd like a top-notch booth. I'm here to entertain a friend. Before the proprietor could finish his fawning, Pai Batian had gone straight to the second floor of the tea house, and the proprietor hurried to serve him. Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo were able to see everything that had transpired from a corner of the back hall. The youth behind Thunderbolt Batian was none other than the young lord of the Feng family, Feng Yanyang, whom the two of them had searched so hard for. As for the veiled woman by Feng Yanyang's side, Yun Ruoyan would be able to recognize her as Rong Yuishan even if she were reduced to ashes. When the two of them saw that the wind crown was unscathed, they relaxed a little. At the same time, however, they were puzzled. Why would Pai Batian bring the wind crown around Thunderbolt City, and even to a place as chaotic as this tea house? Was there some sort of conspiracy behind all this? Why have the two of you come to the rear hall? The front hall is where guests are entertained, and the rear hall is off limits to unauthorized visitors. Please proceed to the front hall. The tea house proprietor came out of the booth after greeting Pai Batian. When he went downstairs and entered the rear hall, he saw Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo hiding there. Boss, my wife isn't feeling well, and she's looking for a restroom. I don't know where to find one, Li Mo replied. The tea house proprietor had a waiter bring the two of them to the restroom in the rear hall. My wife isn't feeling well, and she'd like to find a quiet room to rest in. Would you be so kind as to accommodate her? Li Mo took out a handful of spirit crystals and handed them to the waiter. The waiter hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he didn't succumb to the temptation. He took the spirit crystals from Li Mo's hands and led the two of them upstairs. There were only 2 booths upstairs, and one of them was for Pai Batian's trio. Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo were led into the other booth by the waiter. The waiter reminded the two of them not to disturb the other guests before leaving. The 2 booths were only separated by a single wall. Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo infused their ears with spiritual energy to eavesdrop on the conversation in the other booth. I've invited Brother Feng to Thunderbolt City for quite a few days now, but I haven't had the time to entertain you. Did you enjoy your stroll today? Pai Batian's voice rang out from the other booth. Young Lord Pai, you're too polite, the Wind Crown replied coldly. Compared to the prison, the outside world is naturally much better. Indeed, I had no choice but to lock you up in the prison, Brother Feng. Thunderbolt Batian smiled. If you agree to persuade your father to kidnap Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo, there's still room for discussion. I've already said that with my father's personality, that's impossible, the Wind Crown continued. Wind Crown continued, plus, I'm not someone who's afraid of death. You don't have to beat around the bush and do these useless things. The sound of a wine glass shattering could be heard from the next booth, followed by Pai Batian's angry voice. Wind Crown, don't be so ungrateful. I released you from the prison to give you a chance. This is your only chance. If you don't grasp it, I will tie you up and bring you to the border city tomorrow. I will hang you on the city gate tower. I want to see if Feng Yanyang will step over your dead body to attack the city. You! Feng Mian was infuriated. After a moment of silence, the Wind Crown's voice rang out once more. Ha, don't even think about scaring me. The Feng family isn't easily frightened. Is that so? Pai Batian's sinister voice rang out. Brother Feng, it looks like you're going to do this the hard way. As soon as he finished speaking, Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo heard the sounds of fighting from the next booth, followed by Wind Crown screams. Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo frowned at the same time. They glanced at each other, but neither of them made a move. The situation was so sudden that, in order to prevent any trickery, neither Yun Ruoyan nor Li Mo dared to act rashly. Instead, they chose to wait and see. The sounds of fighting continued from the next booth, and it was clear that Wind Crown was no match for Pai Batian. On the other hand, Pai Batian had clearly dealt a heavy blow, and Wind Crown's screams of pain rang out incessantly. But no matter how much Pai Batian threatened or tempted him, Wind Crown didn't change his stance. This was something that both Yun Ruoyan and Liemo admired. Although the two of them weren't very familiar with Wind Crown, they had some understanding of him and knew that he wasn't a particularly capable person. However, under Feng Yinyang's tutelage, he was rather well behaved. Surprisingly, his unyielding character didn't embarrass Feng Yinyang. "Young Lord," Rong Yuashan called out. At this time, Rong Yuashan's voice rang out. She said to Thunderbolt Batian, "Young noble Feng is still useful to us. If young city lord kills him, wouldn't it be a waste of effort?" You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.